What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to the Saturday of Labor Day weekend show. 4 o'clock start for an 11 gamer. Kind of taking a Labor Day approach to this one. Kind of embracing the nature of the holiday. The end of the summer, the relaxation. 3-day weekend. Hopefully some guys out there, some of you folks out there have some good plans. Or somebody's enjoying something. I'm not doing much. Doing some shows. Hanging out with you guys, some DFS. Apparently, according to my landlord, we'll see if it actually happens. According to him, PSE&G, the local utility company, the gas and electric company, according to him, they're coming tomorrow between noon and 5, Sunday of Labor Day weekend, to replace a gas meter in my hallway. I don't buy it for 1 second, but he wants me to be here during the afternoon on Sunday of Labor Day weekend. I don't really have any plans, but I told him I wasn't necessarily going to be around because, I don't know, somebody calls and says, hey, come to a barbecue. I might go to a barbecue. I might want to go to see a movie. I might want to just take a walk, wander around, not sit here waiting for hours for PSE&G to not show up on Sunday of Labor Day weekend. There's no way, right? Am I crazy? Anybody out there think that they're actually showing up? I think I'm crazy. I think I'm not crazy. I think they're crazy. The landlord's crazy. He's making stuff up. Anyway, handful of folks here. Got Poe Degen Stoner, as usual. Obi-Wan's here. D's here. Matt Tomlinson. Could be Travis. A little bit of the gang here so far. We'll let people trickle in. Interesting slate. Anthony Taylor's here. What's up, Ant? Interesting slate. 11 games. Yesterday's 14-gamer kind of broke me. There were just too many good pitching options. By the end of that show, I was just brain dead. I got off the air. I built my lineups. I entered them. I went and had dinner, and then I sat down on the couch and basically crashed. I took Joker for a good walk, and then it was probably 10:30. I was just done for last night. Slept in this morning. Woke up just not feeling it. Woke up just like, oh man, I can't believe we got to go through 11 games now. So that's another reason we just didn't get the article today. But we're going to go through it. All the tools on the site are updated, or the rankings, whatever we're calling them. The home run picks are updated. The power index. The top stacks board is updated. I think it's an interesting top stacks board today. Blue Jays at Coors Field with by far the highest run total, not necessarily projected at the top of the board. Pittsburgh Pirates pulling an interesting projection. We'll see how that one goes. We'll get into it. It's a little bit more of a limited pitching slate. By comparison to yesterday, I don't think we have another pitching slate that was as deep as yesterday's. But by comparison, it's a lot more limited. There's some really good options, though, up at the top. Gets a little bit thin, but there's some good ones, at a variety of price points. And then there's a couple interesting discount ones. So I think it's a better, more reasonable kind of a pitching slate, instead of saying I want 8 shares of that guy and 8 shares of that guy and on down through 20 options. I think today we can get a little bit more focused on some of these pitching options. There's a couple clunkers, so it's a bit better, a bit more user-friendly of a slate, if nothing else. Poe Degen, I appreciate you too. I wasn't looking for sympathy, buddy. Just describing how I woke up in the morning. I just felt brain dead after that one. That one took a lot, getting through the article and then getting through the show. So, but I appreciate that, man. That's nice of you to say. I appreciate all you guys just for showing up. Saturday of Labor Day weekend, like I said, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. 15 people hanging out so far. I'm sure we'll get some more coming in. Travis Wyndham just got here. What's up, Travis? So let's load this thing up. I'd like to get through this one, not in a hurry, but at a reasonable clip. Yeah, looks like a bunch of lineups came in too. Good. Like to have an hour and change to build my lineups out. So we'll see if we can get through this one in a reasonable time. Multiple Travis chat. Lone Wolf's here. What's up, Lone Wolf? No, Lone Wolf's been hanging out in the Discord, chatting and talking shop a little bit. We've got the football Discord up and running. Just remembered I have to finish putting my placeholders in. Got the football Discord up and running. We'll have some stuff going this coming week. I have no idea still how the schedule's going to break down. I have the idea for the shows, but as far as articles, content, what I'm going to be doing, still don't really know the plan. It's kind of how this whole operation goes. But we'll see. I'll be sure that you guys are second after I figure out what it's going to be. You guys will be the next ones to know. It could be Travis. Yeah, I said the under is minus 500 to have an hour for my lineups. We'll see. I mean, that's why I went for the 4 o'clock start, especially since we didn't do the article. You know, we'll have 2 hours to meander through this one. Get off at 6, and then we've got a 7:10 start, so we might be okay. It's not like a weird early start that I didn't notice on DraftKings, is it? No, we're good. 7:10 starts on both sites for the 11-gamer. So, take a look. I think the run board might be an important place to start. Like I said, Toronto Blue Jays, once again, 7+ run total. We've got the Red Sox, though, up over 6. That's an interesting spot for sure. Kind of didn't come through as much as we wanted yesterday, but I think we go right back to that one. We've got a couple 5s to work with. More 5s on the board today, more high 4s on the board today than there were yesterday, with more games on the slate yesterday. So again, I think it's just a more user-friendly slate where the bats are probably going to win out. We've got some really good-looking spots for offense. Really like how the Braves and the Dodgers are projecting in that late game. Dodgers just under 5, Braves pulling 5+, leading the board for power, leading the world for everything. Like I mentioned, the Pirates against Drew Rom, 4.36 run total. Not really a crazy run total, but a decent overall total at 9.5. Cardinals getting most of it as decent favorites, but I'm seeing some good projections on the Pirates side that we'll get into. And it's an interesting version of that lineup. It's kind of a filled out lineup at this point, so that one will be fun to talk about. We've got some sneaky power lurking in a few spots. We've got the Phillies at a pretty good run total. So there's a lot of better spots to go to on the board offensively versus yesterday when we had 28 teams to work with, but like 22 of them were facing really good pitchers. So obviously the Coors game probably going to be a big factor. As usual, I think you just go into that one, make your decision in terms of where you want to be versus the field, because obviously that's going to be a good spot for offense again, or a potentially good spot for offense, but it'll be really, really popular. Obi-Wan says, hey, Ted, thanks for taking time off from Labor Day weekend to do this show. This is my Labor Day weekend, buddy. This is like I was just saying before, this is basically the sum total of my plans so far is this show, and then what I'm sure will be a show tomorrow morning, and then another one on Monday. Monday we'll probably do some football content in some form or another too. See what happens. We'll definitely have something. At the very least, we'll have something going through the week, talking about the main slate coming up on next. It is next Sunday, right? Yeah, the 10th. So we'll have a good run up to the main slate, and then I'm definitely gonna have something for Thursday. I think Thursday's opening night, if I'm not mistaken. This is how deep I am into the football season so far. I have no idea what the schedule even is. Pretty sure the first game's Thursday night. So we'll definitely do something for the one gamer. I tied for first, I think 5 times in the single game slates for football last year, including one that chopped a million 5 ways. So I kind of zeroed in on those single game slates for NFL last year. So I'm hoping to do that again. Hopefully we can share some of that. But we'll definitely be getting into those. Hayes hitting leadoff today for the Pirates is a nice chance. Says could be Travis. Yep, love that spot. Obviously, that's one of the guys we've been giving a little love to lately, and for the most part, working out. I think he's been hitting a little bit better, kind of coming through on the premium contact. We'll talk about all of it, as I'm sure you were expecting. Let's get over to the pitching board. Interesting board. Most of the obvious guys, cresting to the top of this one. No real surprises for as I look down the pitching board, and it compares pretty favorably. I was checking out some competing projections. I got to resort because David Peterson. I redid some of the. Gave Peterson a little nudge. He was under projected in innings, so I gave him a full innings count since he went full innings last time. He's obviously, that's a great starting point. He projects out well. High strikeout matchup against that Mariners team. Very, very cheap on both sides. Always has been a very good strikeout pitcher, and we'll look at it in a minute. Premium spot for upside. He wasn't getting full innings in a handful of starts, and then he was fully unleashed again last time. So speaking of fully unleashed, Kyle Harrison projects out okay versus that Padres lineup. I think there's a very clear ceiling here for another big strikeout performance, but a worse matchup for him against this Padres team. So back to earth a little bit for Kyle Harrison, but I think we can expect full innings from him, which we weren't really projecting the last time around. So that one works out nicely. He's fairly priced, kind of in the middle of the board. Mike Clevenger, great matchup against Detroit, pulling a really good projection. He's been at least pitching deep into games. He's been pitching somewhat effectively over the last couple. We'll talk about the specific performances. We'll look at the numbers, but fairly priced for a matchup against the Tigers. Montgomery, kind of a clunker the last time, but overall pretty deep innings, pretty reliable through most of the season. Hunter Brown against that new and improved version of the Yankees lineup that we saw last night. Projects out very well. I believe in that spot. Definitely we've seen that Yankees team get got by worse pitchers than Hunter Brown all season. Aaron Nola, Luis Castillo, Blake Snell. I don't think we have to sell any of those spots too hard. Castillo probably over the couple bumps that he suffered in late July, early August. Couple of good starts in a row. Aaron Nola, up and down for him this season, but overall pretty good. Still very high priced, still effective. Good matchup against the Brewers. And then Snell, just a fantastic matchup against that Giants team. High strikeout lefty against that team. Whether or not he's walking people, he's been pitching deep into games lately. So it's a pretty good spot, I think, for Blake Snell at the top of the board. High projection, I left it alone. It's a 6+ inning projection, but it was low like 6+ the way that the model works. So I like that spot, but I think he's going to be popular. I think you're going to get popularity on these three guys. I think you're going to get a ton of popularity as the value play du jour on David Peterson. And then we've got some spots where, like I said, the Pirates project out well against Drew Rom. He doesn't particularly project well, but this isn't bad for the money. And there's a little bit of ceiling there. Kyle Bradish against the Diamondbacks, terrible matchup. Mid-board projection for a typically, Bradish-like price, fair price. Ciccone, maybe a little bit of value against that Orioles team, but I like that Orioles team, so not totally thrilled with that one. Inexperienced pitcher, but it projects out well. So I think that's another interesting value option that people will definitely be going to David Peterson more. Kikuchi at Colorado, I don't really like the looks of. Reese Olson could be interesting against the White Sox. Another guy doesn't really project well. Not a ton of track record, but he's been all right. Severino, if you want to throw him at the Astros, he's been better in his last two. Tanner Houck against the Royals probably has a little upside, but short starts. And then these guys just kind of more targets on the mound down here. Podijan says Colorado was plus 200 money line, even went up in the third quarter. No respect. I guess we're talking college football. As I've said, college football is definitely one that's just no bandwidth for. I'm aware that it started, but that's about it. Jake Swales like these Yanks against Chalk Brown. So Brown's getting a lot of action. That makes sense, given where he's priced. Well, I don't dislike the Yanks. I had a little bit last night, but not enough. Not enough, obviously, Jason Dominguez for that amazing home run on the first pitch that he saw in his entire career from Justin Verlander, which, by the way, Gundacker called on Twitter. Pretty good job by Gun. So let's dive into this thing. Alec Marsh, Tanner Houck. Marsh, kind of interesting. 9 strikeouts in each of the last 2 versus Oakland and Seattle. Obviously, much better matchups there. Much better matchups for strikeouts. Gave up 2 home runs and 3 earned runs in each of those. 5 innings in 4 straight outings, but hasn't finished the 6th. So, I don't know. We've got a limited shot at a quality start. We've got him in a much worse matchup with the Red Sox in town. Red Sox pulling that monster projection. And then, the monster run total in Vegas. And then overall, Houck, he's got a Marsh 26% strikeout rate, which is nice, but an 11.9% walk rate, a 5.07 xFIP, a 5.47 ERA, and giving up a 6.17% home run rate on 11.3% barrels. Looks a lot more like a target to me, especially with the way that the Red Sox are coming through the model. All fantastic projections up and down. It's a really deep lineup. There's a lot of power showing through in the model. So, really like the spot for the Red Sox. I expect they're going to gain some popularity here again, but they're relatively affordable. They project out really, really well. So, I think it's a key spot to go to. They're second on the board by projections, first on FanDuel points per dollar, second on DK points per dollar, 5th overall by home run potential. And that's because they've got like Reese McGuire down the bottom of the lineup here, dragging it down a little bit by the home run total. Emmanuel Valdez, a little bit, but he's got 4 homers and 102, so maybe this isn't giving him quite enough credit. We've got some terrific power up here. Some very, very good hitters with great skill sets up there. So I really like the Red Sox side. Tanner Houck, 21.5% in 76 and 2/3 innings, 8.6% walks, a 4.93 ERA, but a better xFIP under the surface, 3.92. He's pretty good at keeping the ball down, keeping it on the ground, 6.3 degree average launch, but giving up a few home runs this year. Handful of mistakes. It's a relatively small sample. 90 miles an hour of exit velo. That's right on the line that we look for. 43.4% hard hits. Typically, when it's at this kind of a launch angle, this kind of a barrel rate, we're okay with it. And that's what Houck focuses on. He was a little bit better at it last year. 1.21% home run rate in his 60 innings. Year before, 1.4 in 69 innings. Limits barrels, limits launch. Less so this year, more so that year. But an effective enough pitcher. The issue that you get into with Houck, third start back, 5 innings, 4 innings, the last 2, just kind of lack of depth. Wasn't really pitching deep into games before that. I just don't really see it for Houck at 8,000, 7,700. The Royals obviously went off yesterday against Paxton. Not the same kind of a matchup, not the same kind of a pitcher, righty instead of a lefty. I do think maybe a few shares of the Royals are not completely out of line again. They're very cheap. They're easy enough to get to, but he's got a limiting impact on their home run numbers. If he's on form, he's going to be checking power, at least for a few innings here. So the Royals overall ranked dead last, 22nd out of 22 teams, 22nd on the home run board. So it's really just a couple darts if you want it for some value. If you're going to Royal Stacks, you start and end with Bobby Witt. That could be a good one-off. That's the only really high-performing player in this lineup this year. Sal Perez hit 2 last night to get himself up to 21 on the season. A 177 ISO, though, still 13% worse than average creating runs for Sal Perez. Not really exactly what you're looking for from Sal, but he's very cheap for the struggles. His contact profile is still pretty good. For 2,500 on FanDuel, for 4,200 on DK, definitely your second best, highest priority bat there. 3,400, 2,700 for the contact that MJ Melendez makes as a lefty against the limited righty. He's probably one of your better shots for a home run, but he's limited at 1.85. He's only got 12 on the year, only a 153 ISO despite the contact. Michael Garcia hits the ball very, very hard, but on a limited launch angle, limited barrels. More of a line drive, stolen base kind of a guy. Only a 327 on base, 12% worse than average creating runs. It's basically who he is at the top of the lineup. Freddie Freeman's been okay. Second catcher in the lineup, 33-24, 9 homers, decent triple slash, 114 WRC plus to be one of 3 guys in this lineup, one of whom is Nelson Velasquez at the bottom of the lineup in 91 plate appearances. That would probably calm down a little bit. Only 3 guys over the magic number or over the league average in run creation this season. Mike Massey, Drew Waters, Matt Beattie, really limited there. Nelson Velasquez does have power. He's been showing it off. 9 home runs at a monster 365 ISO in 91 plate appearances. 20% barrels, 46.7% hard hits. Very small sample, 91 plate appearances, but also very cheap. Not an ideal wraparound guy because he's not an on-base focused hitter. He's not focused on hits at all, but he could clear the bases of some of these guys. On the Red Sox side, it's really 1 through 7. Pretty high priority bats. If you want to mix and match, Rafi Devers is the guy I want the most. He's got the most power on the team, 12.90 in the home run model to lead the team today. The only guy technically over the magic number, but all these guys right at it, basically. So there's tons and tons of power in the Red Sox lineup. Tristan Casas, I think you guys know I really like. 13.6% barrels, 46.5% hard hits on the year. 224 ISO. The big second half has cooled a little bit over the last couple of weeks, but still sitting 21 home runs. Should have a good shot at getting to 25 before the end of the month. Like the hitter a lot. He strikes out a little bit, but he walks a ton. Leading walk rate on the team. Justin Turner's an excellent hitter. He's got 22 home runs, 199 ISO, showing off the power this year, but also maintaining a really, really strong triple slash. Doesn't strike out. Devers under a 20% strikeout rate for all his power. Top of the lineup, Alex Verdugo, under a 15% strikeout rate. Doesn't quite walk enough to be as effective as he should be in that leadoff role. 340 on base, he should be a little bit higher, but still a positive run creator. A little bit of individual power. Very good option there. Then you get power from Adam Duvall from the right side, 4,932. He's got 18 homers and 276 plate appearances. Yoshida puts bat on ball among the best in the league at putting bat on ball, only a 12.5% strikeout rate. Limited barrel rate, limited hard hits. The hard hit rate is good, not great. It's above average good. I mean, it is a good hard hit rate, but he was higher in the earlier part of the season, hitting for a little bit more power earlier in the season, down to a 160 ISO, 13 homers, but still maintaining a really good triple slash, 15% better than average grading runs. Then Trevor Story, as we talked about a bunch of different times already, still making very, very good contact in his limited 80 plate appearances. Only has one home run, sub Mendoza, bad on base percentage so far, only a 105 ISO. 69% worse than average grading runs. It's still Trevor Story. He's still making great contact. And like I talked about yesterday, at least he's running. In the few times he's gotten on, he's stolen 5 bases. So that's a plus. 4,400, 3,000 for that player. Lost his second base eligibility on DK, but an effective enough shortstop in a lineup that doesn't have a shortstop alternative. Still second and shortstop on FanDuel. Very cheap on both sides for his talent. Mix and match guys at the bottom. So, don't really think we need either of these pitchers. I do think there is a little bit of potential for Alec Marsh on the right day, but it's more find some strikeouts, but probably giving up a handful of runs and some power to the Red Sox. So the times that he truly pays this off effectively enough are probably pretty limited in this spot. Tanner Houck, I don't think we're getting depth out of. It's an okay spot. He's definitely got an upside against the Royals beyond where he's projected, but I question the depth for the money. And he's not exactly an extreme value. 7,700 is only okay. 8,000, he's one of the more affordable pitchers with talent on the FanDuel slate, but just not a great spot. Red Sox bats, only minor darts of Royals bats, like I said, bottom of the board. So not a great spot for Royals, but I don't love the spot for Houck. Let's see if we got the Mariners lineup in. We do. Fantastic. So, value spot du jour, I have to imagine around the industry, David Peterson here is getting a little bit of chatter. And he projects out pretty well. There are 25% strikeouts collectively in this confirmed version of the Mariners lineup. We know that they're pretty targetable for strikeouts. We know that they've got a lot of power, a fair amount of quality in that lineup. But their thing is, hey, we're free swingers. We're going to swing for the fences, and we connect with regularity. We've got a lot of good home run totals, but 30% of the time, a lot of us are going to be striking out and putting zeros into lineups. Peterson, 7 innings, 8 strikeouts, 1 earned run on 3 hits versus the Angels the last time out. That's all I really need to see is that depth. He finally found a start where he got unleashed a little bit, got good depth, and pitched really well. 24.2% strikeout rate on the season, 84 in the third inning, 16 starts. He's been mixed for quality. He's been getting dinged. There was a note that I read somewhere in the industry, courtesy, kudos to them. Somebody noted the BABIP that he's had against him. I didn't get a chance to look it up, but I expect that it's pretty high given the clunker of a season that he's had overall. But always has been good for strikeout rates, as we've talked about the last few times he's pitched. 27.8% in 105 and 2/3 major league innings, 19 starts last year. Had a 3.83 ERA and a very, very good 3.31 xFIP. Walks too many, consistently has walked too many up above 10%, but has been good. 2 years ago, it was a 24% strikeout rate in 66 and 2/3 innings. 2 years ago kind of looks like this year. 5.54 ERA, 3.93 xFIP. This year, 5.23 ERA, 3.80 xFIP. Giving up a little bit of contact this year, give up a little bit of contact that year. Very similar exit velos. Lower barrel rate this year, which is a plus. 4.8 degree average launch angle as well. So focused on keeping the ball on the ground, which is a plus. BABIP against for Peterson this year, 357. That's pretty monstrous. So a lot of bad luck, a lot of misfortune there. The xFIP is the number to really, pay attention to. This is really the more honest of the runs numbers here. Definitely needs to harness walks. In that last one, that was a key factor. So if he can get the depth, I think there's a interesting starter here. If the entire industry is going to be on him because of the $6,300, $6,200 price tag, I think at worst you can explore some of the other value options on the slate for some of those shares while still rostering a fair amount of Peterson because he is such a good high-end value play here. But I think it would also probably pay to grab a few stacks of Mariners if that's the situation. Mariners are good enough that I probably want a little bit of them anyway. Not showing through for a ton of power here, but a couple good mid-range marks for the guys you would expect. J.P. Crawford's really good at getting on base. He's got a 386 on base percentage, a 133 WRC plus, 13 homers of his own in a very good season, 19.3% strikeouts, and he walks 15.6% of the time. That's a guy who can exploit the high walk rate for Peterson while potentially limiting the strikeouts in that leadoff spot for a fairly cheap price at shortstop. Julio, spectacular. Monster turnaround for his season overall. 24.5% strikeouts, though. Targetable and targetable-ish with Peterson. Junior Suarez, 30+%. Teoscar, 30+%. Cal Raleigh, 28. Dylan Moore late in the lineup, 34.5% in only 116 plate appearances. But was it 29 last year? Sam Haggerty, 62 plate appearances. He's limited strikeouts well this year. 26.4% last year in 201 plate appearances. So probably a higher strikeout guy than he's been showing so far this year. 22.3% and a good walk rate for Jose Caballero down in the bottom of the lineup. And a few of these guys throughout do have good walk rates to go with the high strikeouts, at least in fair samples here. Similar last year for these guys. So while there's a lot of ceiling here for David Peterson if he gets the innings, I do think there's a little bit of opportunity to grab some Mariners on the other side of the ownership. Dual position eligibility for everybody at the bottom of the lineup on DraftKings. Triple position eligibility at very cheap prices for everybody at the bottom of the lineup on FanDuel. If nothing else, they've got value. They've got a lot of flexibility in the lineup. They only rank 16th on the board by fantasy point projection, so don't get carried away with the play. I like the Peterson side of it a little bit better, but I do think as a contrarian spot, as a hedge spot, assuming that's the case, I think it's targetable there. I like Jose Caballero as a wraparound play, 359 on base percentage, quietly having a pretty good season in 256 plate appearances. An effective enough kid to get on base, wrap me back around to J.P. Crawford, who will also get on base, and then I get my 3-run homer out of Julio, Eugenio, Teoscar, one of those guys. That puts you in business as a pretty cheap stack. Right? All these guys are cheap. A little higher relatively on the DK slate, but below 5,000 for all of those guys with 18 homers, 23 homers, 25 homers from that group. Everybody above average for run creation. That's pretty good. Got like a dog or cat hair on my eye here, and it's tickling my eye as I'm trying to talk about this stuff. The Joker's down here demanding attention. Ty France, 4,000, 2,700. Good salary differentiator right in the heart of the lineup here. 106 WRC plus. Only 10 homers this year. 253, 339, 375 is disappointing from him. But a capable bat-on-ball guy. Their best lowest strikeout rate guy. 17.8% in the middle of the lineup. He was better last year when he was typically hitting second. He had 20 home runs and 276, 340, 437. That guy shows up for a day, he's got value. So I don't mind going to Mariner stacks on the other side of this. Then we've got Luis Castillo on the mound for the Mariners, one of the top projected pitchers on the day against the Mets. 11-1, 10-8. You're getting no discount whatsoever there. Went 7 innings in each of his last 3. Strikeouts, no home runs allowed. Last 2 starts, only 1 earned total. That came against Kansas City, the White Sox, and Kansas City, though. So we temper expectations a little bit. Had a couple clunkers before that run of 3 good starts, but pitches deep into games. 164 innings in 27 starts, 27.6% strikeout rate, a 3.01 ERA, a 3.64 xFIP. Doesn't give up any opportunities. As I've said a few times, basically the mold for the young pitchers that they're grooming. 5.8% walk rate with a very good strikeout rate, limits opportunities. Checks walks, doesn't give up free passes, and then the home runs don't really matter as much. 9.9% barrels is a little high for him, 42.3% hard hits, pushing almost 90 miles an hour of exit velo, 3.51% home runs. This has all been a little higher than we'd like to see, but I do think there's potential, and he's harnessed that no home runs in those last 3 starts. So hopefully he's over whatever was plaguing him for a minute there. Maybe a little bit of just dead arm or whatever, a little tiredness in the middle of the season. So I think Castillo's a tremendous option. You get him against a Mets lineup that's really, 3 really good options in Brandon Nimmo as a very effective leadoff hitter. 355 on base, 20 home runs for Nimmo on the season. Francisco Lindor, 24 home runs, 25 steals, a 209 ISO, 119 WRC plus. And then Pete Alonso still hunting for that elusive 40th home run for the season, 294 ISO, creating runs 28% better than average. Fantastic contact for a guy who only costs 4,800, 3,800 across sites at first base. The back of the lineup, well, there's Jeff McNeil, who, as you know, you can attach him to the Nimmo Lindor Alonso stack all you want, but he's a limited hit tool guy who's not really getting his BABIP this year. On the right day, he gets on base 3 times and he correlates and has a great game against those guys. On the wrong day, he's really ineffective. Vogelback and Stewart do have lefty pop. Vogelback 13 home runs on the year. Stewart 9 home runs on the year. There is a little bit of home run potential for them against Luis Castillo, but limited options. Not really coming through in the home run model. Stewart is weird output in 105 plate appearances. Does have tremendous contact so far. Give me another 105 before I start believing it. Mark Vientos does have a lot of minor league power. Has not shown it at the major league level. Sub Mendoza in 140 plate appearances. 3 homers, a 107 ISO. Omar Narvaez, the backup catcher, takes Francisco Alvarez out of the lineup. He's an effective catcher. 1 home run, 202, 282, 270 this year, though. 58 WRC plus. Has been a more effective offensive option from the left side in years past. Only cost $2,100 across sites at catcher. There's a little value there on the DK slate. If you're going to a bunch of Met stacks, I would include Narvaez in some at the catcher spot on DK. A mix in at best with a lousy projection, a lousy power mark on the FanDuel slate against a tremendous pitcher. Ronnie Mauricio, good debut yesterday. It's at 2 for 3. Didn't score, didn't drive anybody in, but got on base 2 times out of his 3 plate appearances, so that's good. Plus prospect for the Mets. Definitely very interesting at shortstop at 2,000, 2,500. If you're going to Met stacks, he's a fairly high priority bet. Just use him as a wraparound backup to these guys, really. But a kid that they really believe in, kid who had a lot of quality at AAA this year. It's much more firmly on the Castillo side of this one for me, though. I think he has a good game here against the Mets. Limited shares of the Mets. So it's probably Castillo, the Peterson value, Mariners bets behind Peterson, and then mix and match shares of Mets at best. A couple value darts. They ranked out. Got to be pretty bad. 14th by fantasy points. A couple spots ahead of the Mariners, but I actually prefer the Mariners side of that one. 11th by FanDuel point per dollar. 7th by DK point per dollar for the Mets. You do have a lot of very cheap bats on the DK side. I'll give them that much. Even the stars priced below 5,000. That's pretty good. So a little bit of potential there, but got to get Luis Castillo on the wrong day for Castillo. Limited home run, 18th by home run potential for the Mets. So again, it was Castillo, Peterson, Mariners bats, low-end Mets bats. The New York Yankees. Doesn't look like they confirmed it yet. Let's see what's going on here. Arcathelza says Severino is not it today. Could be Travis says, is Severino unbroken, Jake? Jake says, found something with the breaking ball. Arcathelza is using Clevenger and Brown. I don't hate that. Interesting pairing for a little bit of value. Severino higher upside at no ownership, says Jake. I agree with the no ownership part. I don't know. I still consider it dicey. We did see last 2 times for Sevy. 2 starts back, 6 2/3 against Washington. 1 hitter, no in 6 2/3. No runs, so 1 hit shutout over 6 2/3. Only struck out 2, walked 2 against that stingy Washington team. That's a pretty good start. Last time out, 7 shutout innings, 5 hits, 8 strikeouts, but it was at Detroit. I want to temper expectations for what I'm going to get from Luis Severino here. 5,800, 7,500. I do think you can throw the value dart. 5,800 on DK, you can definitely throw the value dart if you want to. It's a really bad matchup, though. The Astros are really good, guys. Mauricio Dubon in the leadoff spot is a downgrade. It's no Jose Altuve today, so that's a big plus for Severino. But you do still have Alex Bregman, Jordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker, Jose Abreu, who launched a home run last night. Got 12 on the season, 79 WRC plus now. Michael Brantley back in this lineup, a very, very effective hitter. Only 9 plate appearances this year. 277 last year. He was 288, 370, 416 with a 127 WRC plus, 5 home runs, and has had very, very good seasons. That is, in a career that would have been better had it not been derailed by so many injuries. Jainer Diaz having a great year. Chas McCormick hiding in the 8th spot in the lineup. That's how good these guys are. Chas McCormick in his breakout season is hitting 8th today. It's not a FanDuel value. I don't think I can get there on FanDuel. On a slate where I like a bunch of pitchers, I'd probably just rather have the popular Peterson shares than the Severino shares that I don't think I believe in. He's just been so bad this year. I get that he's, maybe found a little something. Maybe he's recovered a little bit of his talent. But I think I need to see it a few more times before I really believe on the single starter side, especially because, 7,500 is an effective value price. But Peterson's cheaper. Who else is cheaper? Sevy's probably the next guy on the list. I don't know, Ciccone, if you want to include him. Technically, Drew Rom, cheaper. Reese Olson, competitively priced. There's a lot of guys around this level. Not that I want to go to Bryce Elder, Colin Ray, Emmett Sheehan, Alec Marsh. Alec Marsh is not a crazy dart throw. Like, if you think that Sevy against the Astros is playable, you should definitely think that Alec Marsh against the Red Sox is playable, despite what the Vegas board says, despite what the projections say. That's about the same kind of an option. Alec Marsh has been striking out way more hitters this year. The Red Sox obviously better, not obviously better than the Astros. The Red Sox lineup today maybe a little bit better than the Astros lineup, but collectively, it's probably a good 7 versus a good 7, right? That's not bad. So a good 6 versus a good 6, maybe? Not that I'm advocating for either one of those guys. Not saying go play Alec Marsh now. But I do think that there are comparable value plays on the board. So it's tough for me to get to Sevy. At the DK price, you can throw a handful of darts at that value, 5,800. Go out there and give me six and change. Find 5-6 strikeouts. Hopefully the Yankees get him to a win against Hunter Brown here. A lot of people going to Hunter Brown apparently, so I do think that you can get to the Yankees side of things. You can chase the win and the bonus with the pitcher along with the stack if you want to. There's a few ways to attack that with the 5,800 value on the DK slate. Yanks lineup going up against Hunter Brown, assuming this is the version of the lineup that we get. We saw Jason Dominguez with the monster debut yesterday. Price has not gone up. That is interesting. Dead minimum on DK. That's a critical bat in stacks of Yankees. I also think viable one-off. He only went 1 for 4, but he cranked that home run into the left field seats. So there's at least a little bit of value. That was an oppo, by the way. He was hitting lefty against Verlander. So interesting value there for Dominguez, 2,000, 2,200. Needs more room to grow before he starts really projecting the way that maybe he will. We haven't really seen enough yet, but he's a monster for power. A lot of track record in the minors for quality. Austin Wells, pretty good debut for him. He got 1 hit. He's the catcher. Hopefully the catcher of the future. Kid that they fully believe in the bat. Not sure about the D, but they fully believe in the bat. Everson Pereira, another kid, 2,400, 2,100, high-end prospect that was really performing in the minors, over 43 plate appearances in the show, hasn't given us anything to talk about yet. Oswald Peraza, another high-end prospect for this team, hasn't really done anything in the show this year in 99 plate appearances. 4 stolen bases, only a 23 WRC+. Plus. Does give you a lot of positional flexibility with talent for a cheap price after you start rostering the top end of the lineup. Your priority bats are still here. Really here and here and here. Aaron Judge, 66-41, 8.63 in the home run model. So a little bit of limitation in the home runs from Hunter Brown's quality, even for Aaron Judge. So you do have that factoring against you for the Yankees' potential here. Hunter Brown, 5 innings, 9 Ks last time out, 2 earned runs against Detroit. Went 2 in relief and had a 2 2/3 innings bad start before that. Had been 6 innings, 4 straight starts prior to the limited appearances, and was kind of shaky. So I'm not exactly sure what to expect from Hunter Brown here, but given that he was at least pretty effective in that Detroit start, maybe we're only getting him for 5 or 6. I do feel like they're trying to limit the overall pitch count for the season now. 133 innings in 24 starts, 27.1% strikeouts for Brown. 3.32 xFIP is terrific. 4.47 ERA, a little bit uglier, but he's talented. Undeniably talented. 10.3% barrels, but only a 6.6 degree average launch angle. 3.21% home run rates. This is fine as long as the launch angle's down. But what that tells me is when there's so much premium contact being made, the barrel rate betrays these. That's where these home runs came from. It betrays the launch angle. So there are some home runs potentially, but overall pretty good at limiting them. Aaron Judge, pretty good at finding them. Giancarlo Stanton, pretty good at finding him. He hit one to New Orleans yesterday. 21 on the season, a 240 ISO. Aaron Judge, 30 on the season in 347 plate appearances, a 357 ISO. Gleyber Torres, 23 on the season, a 189 ISO. Talked to you yesterday about how he's really made big strides in terms of his strikeout rate, his walk rate, everything he does at the plate. DJ, coming around a little bit, maybe up to 14 home runs, up to a 102 WRC+. Plus. He's been more effective of late. It's a very good spot in an interesting lineup. 3,900, 2,600, plays 3 positions on FanDuel, not without value. Mr. Volpe, 20 home runs, 21 steals. That's good. Up to a 93 WRC+. Plus. We're creeping up in value. 190 ISO for the season. The power, the counting stats have been there. As I keep saying, he should probably be above, we'll call it 35 steals. We'll be conservative. We'll call it 35 steals because he should be getting on base at like a 320, 330 clip at least. But room to grow. Love the young kids down the bottom. The Yankees, as clunky as they've been this season, as many valid complaints as there have been this season, remembering that Anthony Rizzo is coming back to fill this role at first base next year, this is not a bad core of young players to pull off an instant rebuild. As I've said a few times this season, I think this might just end up being a tweener year for these Yankees, where they retool on the fly around this core of players. DJ will still be here as like a util guy, hopefully, and Anthony Rizzo. Give me Rizzo back in this spot with this lineup. I'll go into next year with that. I'm sure they'll make some additions. I'm sure they'll end up axing 2 or 3 of the kids in favor of a 35-year-old veteran of some kind, or who knows. But I don't mind this lineup full of kids. On the Astros side, you're prioritizing Alvarez and Tucker, obviously. Tons of power on the board for Alvarez, 13.23, one of the higher home run marks on the day, 279 ISO on the season, 23 homers. High priority bats. They ranked 8th by collective fantasy point projections, 6th by home run upside today against Sevy. He's given up a 5.24% home run rate, a 6.64 ERA, a 4.89 xFIP overall for this season, striking out less than 20%, walking a fairly aggressive 8.4, 10.5% barrels. Like I said, I want to see it more times, the new and improved or back to form version of Severino before I really buy in against a team like this. So I think I'll have more Astros bats than Severino for sure. Yanks bats versus Hunter Brown shares. If he's going to be that popular, he does project out well. I will have some, but I feel like that's probably an undercut, take some of the Yankees side of things, especially with all the prime value plays down the bottom of the lineup that I do believe in and want to get to. I think that's kind of interesting. Oh, Jake, you're right. Why would DK not add Austin Wells for today? That sucks. I get why they didn't have him yesterday, but that sucks because he's a catcher. That's a big piece of value that's missing from that DK slate. Yeah, good point there, bud. That's shitty. Maybe they add him before the lock starts. Mama getting ready for his draft, but wanted to apologize for the Houston bats last night call. I think I might have been looking at today. Go Astros. Yeah, I do like that spot for Houston a little bit here today. They excel against lefties, though. It was the Rodon game yesterday, right? They excel against lefties. I didn't disagree with that call. I was on that call. Jake says, shit, I might run some Severino and Yanks in the relay throw. Look, I don't hate it. For that value price, I don't think it's completely crazy. Try and grab the win, et cetera, et cetera. But, I don't trust that I won't throw it probably for 75 on FanDuel. I will have Hunter Brown. That's what I was talking about. But if he's crazy popular, I can undercut and grab some of my Yankees here. Maybe it's a homer play. I don't think so, though. I think they're a little bit interesting today. Anytime you can get like this combination of guys, these 3 guys in various combinations, offset with actual talent, or at least the projected talent for very cheap prices, I don't mind getting into some shares of Yankees, even as bad as they've been this season. So I got to call it. Let me see where the Yanks ranked. Yanks were 9th, but 4th by points per dollar on both sides, but only 21st by home run upside, which, again, Hunter Brown, fairly effective at keeping the ball down. But when he makes mistakes, they do travel, and the Yanks do have those excellent bats for home run upside. Tough one. Astros bats. Astros bats, Hunter Brown, Yankees value. Severino value if you want to throw that dart, but it is a you are far away from the dartboard, and the bullseye is extra small. Tigers and the White Sox. Grab the Detroit lineup. It's in. Clevy. Looking interesting today. Everybody looks interesting against the Tigers, even though they've been a little bit better of late, even though there's some interesting bats in that lineup. Although that's less the case today with no Riley Green in there. Keel Badu, Zach McKinstry off the top. Spencer Torkelson hitting third. Miggy hitting fourth, which is weird. Kerry Carpenter I do like hitting fifth. Andre Lipschitz. When I saw it earlier, I thought it was Lipicus, but it's Lipschitz, I guess. We'll get there. Clevy, 7 innings in 2 of the last 3. 7 strikeouts in 7 against the Cubbies. 10 strikeouts in 7 against the Athletics. Tough game in between those two. Is what he is, I think. 3.32 ERA, but a 5.31 xFIP. This is probably closer to this, but call it in the mid-4s overall. 20.8% strikeouts, about right. Too many walks. Not terrible for home runs or premium contact, though. 33.2% hard hits, 7.5% barrel rate, 88 miles an hour of exit velo, 2.69% home runs in 97 and 2/3, 18 starts this year. It's spotty, but it is a very good matchup, especially with this version of this Tigers lineup. So 28.1% strikeout rate on the board for this version of the lineup. I kind of like this spot now for Clevy. Pretty good value option. 8,000, 8,900 on FanDuel, mid-board kind of an option. Maybe he loses a little bit of followers around the Hunter Brown shares and some of the other somewhat similarly priced guys. And then other people go to the extreme value plays. So maybe he falls through the cracks a little bit. So I like this spot for Clevenger. You can find a few additional strikeouts up from here. In the past, last year, 18.8% strikeouts was not quite as good for strikeouts, but was better in terms of the xFIP. Like I said, probably this is like, 4.7, 4.5, 4.33 ERA last year, so I call it in between here and here probably in reality. But overall, a talented enough guy to get through this version of the Tigers lineup. If you want to go to Tigers, they ranked out earlier in the day. They were still 20th on the board, but they were 11th by FanDuel value and 12th by home run rating. That comes down with this version of the lineup. Akil Baddoo up top, 4.92 in the home run model. Zach McKinstry, 4.96. So it's Spencer Torkelson and Kerry Carpenter that I want if I'm going to this team. And everybody else is just kind of a bolt-on part at best. We can take a look at Andre Lipschitz, 25 years old. Oh, he was their 30th ranked prospect coming into the year. What a 30th ranked guy in the Tigers organization. That means you got to be good. 419 plate appearances in AAA this year as a 25-year-old, 11 home runs, 17.7% strikeout rate, 12.4% walk rate, 272, 363, 419, 98 WRC plus despite the decent triple slash. Yeah, I'd call him a moderate option. First base, third base for the dead minimum on DK, third base for the dead minimum on FanDuel. If you're going to stacks of Tigers, you can include him. Otherwise, I don't think he's really a high priority. Parker Meadows, a pretty good 44 plate appearances so far. A home run, 2 stolen bases, a 134 WRC plus, decent triple slash. So he's probably the third most interesting bat in this one. It's Torkelson, Kerry Carpenter, Parker Meadows. But that's where the popularity will be for anybody who goes to this team. Javi Baez has been bad. Jake Rogers, wildly inconsistent, but does have a lot of power at catcher. If you want him on DK, hitting 9th isn't ideal for your catcher spot over there. I think it makes more sense to get to catchers who just see more plate appearances, just try and buy the opportunities. But $3,100 is a fair price for a catcher with 16 homers and a 220 ISO in 299 plate appearances. 12% barrels, 46.9% hard hits. Monster strikeout rate. Supports the upside for Clevy. But on the wrong day, Jake Rogers is the right guy against Clevy. Baddoo's only kind of interesting. 9 homers, 9 steals. Limited in the triple slash. 15% worse than average. McKinstry, same story. 14% worse than average. Okay counting stats. Limited in the triple slash. Torkelson's a premium power bat, so is Kerry Carpenter. Kerry Carpenter's a better overall hitter, 283, 345, 519, and 345 plate appearances. Both above average, but Carpenter way above average for run creation this year. 20 home runs in 345, excellent contact profile. Torkelson makes better contact, more premium power contact, 24 homers, a 204 ISO. White Sox side, going up against Reese Olson. Olson, 10 strikeouts in 4 1/3 last time out on 3 hits against the Yankees. Walked 4, allowed 1 earned run. Kind of a mixed start there, but 10 strikeouts in 4 1/3 is kind of interesting. 8 strikeout game in 6 innings versus Minnesota on August 10th. 7 strikeouts, but gave up 6 earned runs to the Cubbies on the 22nd. Mid-level prospect for this organization. 72 in a third innings this year, 13 strikeouts, 25.2%, 13 starts, 25.2% strikeout rate. 3.93 xFIP, 5.10 ERA. The xFIP obviously a lot more appealing than the ERA. Some issues with premium contact though. 90.1 miles an hour of exit velo, 9.6% barrels. Fairly decent home run trajectory on the average, 3.55% home run rate. Take what you get, but I think 7,300, 7,900, given the strikeout upside and given the opponent, if he can manage to dance his way around Luis Robert at 12.71, to a lesser extent, Eloy Jimenez, to an even lesser extent, nope, he's not in the lineup. No Andrew Vaughn. So Gavin Sheets maybe at 5.33. But really, it is a two-man lineup that he's, as far as threatening bats for power, threatening bats for run creation. Only Lubob and Eloy Jimenez over the waterline for run creation this year. 35% over is obviously a tremendous season with a 288 ISO, 35 homers, 17 steals on top. Wasn't initially running as much, but has gotten up to 17 steals quietly. Eloy Jimenez just doesn't play enough, but when he does, very, very solid. 15 home runs, 280, 325, 452, creating runs 10% better than average. But Timmy, 40% worse than average. Benintendi, 5% worse than average, up to 13 steals. Anderson, just these stats don't change. It's so weird. 1 home run that he's had for most of the season. He got that in late June, mid-July, somewhere around there, I think. And he's been just stuck at 1. 12 stolen bases. He was stuck at 11 for the longest time, then stole 1 and just hasn't done anything. Strange, just disappointing season for Timmy. 285 on base. Benny, not much better. 338 on base. The WRC plus is obviously a lot closer to league average, but still pretty bad from a guy who's been an effective major league contributor over time. Moncada, good 2 years ago, hasn't been all that good since. He was good in the WBC for Cuba. Thought he was going to have a good season, but got banged up, missed half the season. More than half the season. Hasn't been good. 82 WRC plus, 5 home runs, 248, 292, 378. Sheets, a little bit of lefty pop maybe, 2,300, 2,200 to throw against the contact profile here, but he's pretty limited. 9 home runs on the season in 264, a 73 WRC plus. Not a big-time strikeout target, 19.3% this year, 21% the year before, but doesn't really draw walks. So it kind of limits his value as a power hitting option from the left side. 15 homers last year, 170 ISO, only a 100 WRC plus, only a 295 on base and 410. Lennon Sosa, Oscar Colas, kind of limited options. Corey Lee, I forget specifically, I think it was power. But when we looked him up the other day, there was something appealing about him for the dead minimum at catcher. A little bit of power, a little bit of speed. Last year in AAA, 25 homers, 12 steals. This year in AAA, only 5 homers, 12 steals, and 302. So, limited option bottom of the lineup. Mix in 21 plate appearances in the show and negative 22 WRC plus. Lot of weak run creation folks here. Kind of supports the idea of a little bit of cheap upside for Reese Olson. Again, 73, 79. It's not like he projects great. I don't know how deep he goes into this game, but there's clear strikeout upside. Just to reiterate, last time out, 10 strikeouts in 4 1/3, 8 strikeouts in 6 against Minnesota, but everybody gets strikeouts against Minnesota. 7 strikeouts against the Cubbies, but gave up 6. I think that was a somewhat limited innings. Overall for the season, 25.2% strikeouts. Pretty interesting option on this slate. Clevenger, Reese Olson. Tigers bats. Ugh. Really, neither side is all that appealing. Luis Robert one-offs. Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez two-mans. Tigers bats from the interesting lefties. Plus Spencer Torkelson. So, like, I have to put these guys higher than anybody on the Tigers. So call it, like I said, both pitchers, Clevenger, then Olsen. Then Luis Robert one-offs. Then Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez two-mans. Then three-mans from here. 1, 2, 3. And then whatever mixed bag of Tigers bats over the rest of the White Sox bats. Weird way to break that one down, but it's the only way that I could accurately get anywhere close to correct, I think. It's probably a pitching focus game. Phillies, where is this lineup? Why is this game all the way down here? Both these lineups are in. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe while we have a second. While I'm loading up the lineups for the Phillies and the Brewers game to talk about here. I think we've got a targetable pitcher and a usable pitcher. Targetable with bats. Colin Ray. Colin Ray on the season, 20% strikeout rate, 5.11 ERA, 4.51 xFIP, 4.46% home run rate on 7.5% barrels. A lot of exit velo, a lot of hard hits. An okay launch angle, more fly ball oriented launch angle. So I think we're throwing some Phillies bats at Colin Ray. Mr. Schwarber, where's Larry? Went from under the 10 yesterday, finally for the season, Larry, to 20 to lead the entire slate today. He was my home run pick of the day anyway. Like that spot a lot. Kyle Schwarber, 5,600, 3,600 monster premium contact. Only 189 front end of the triple slash, but an effective 333 on base, like we've talked about, a 270 ISO, 113 WRC plus, 38 home runs. Nick Castellanos pulling a very good home run mark sneakily in the middle of the lineup. A guy that probably going to be less popular than some of the other options. He's got 22 home runs on the season, a 189 ISO, 107 WRC plus. Excellent option for a little bit of sneaky power upside. Trey Turner up to 20 home runs and 23 stolen bases all of a sudden. A 100 WRC plus. Look at that. He's turning it around, gang. 258, 310, 441. Who wants to bet Trey Turner finishes the season above 275? Monster September coming for Trey Turner. He's been on a bit of a roll. Too good to be down all season. It's unfair to have the Phillies getting him back here. Lone Wolf says really good hitting weather. Check the Discord. I think that supports the idea of some of these inflated run totals. Also some clunky pitching in a lot of these spots, like this one, with some Phillies opportunity going up against the Brewers here. So I think there's some good spots. Hey, Mamba, if you're still here, by the way, good luck in that draft, buddy. Let us know who you took. Jump into the football channel in the Discord and let us know who you took. Yankees lineup came out. Jason Dominguez is hitting third for the dead minimum on DK. 2,000 on the FanDuel slate. No Glaber today. So you get DJ, Judge, Dominguez, Stanton, Volpe, Wells, Everson, Oswald Peraza, and then Oswaldo Cabrera in the last spot, who is kind of not that good. But the top 8, I kind of really like. Sucks no Glaber. If Glaber was in the lineup, it would be a pretty solid 9-man like I was talking about. But gotta love Jason Dominguez hitting third. He might go 0 for 5, but gotta love the spot. Hitting third between Judge and Stanton, behind LeMahieu and Judge, ahead of Stanton for the dead minimum on DK. That's a killer spot. Going down the Phillies lineup, Bryce Harper's Bryce Harper. You can roster him at a high price. He's a star. I definitely think he's a key priority bat in stacks of Phillies. Top 4 high priorities, but it's a good bottom end of the lineup. This is also an eight-man deep lineup. JT Realmuto, another star caliber player positionally, 252, 313, 452. He's got 15 homers, 12 steals, a 200 ISO, a 103 WRC plus in another very high-end season behind the plate. 54, 29, affordable at the position on both sites. Stott and Bohm have both been very good this year. They both cost in the mid-range, both fairly priced at worst, if not cheap. 293, 338, 442 for Stott. 279, 337, 433 for Bohm, 14 homers for Stott, 25 steals, 15 and 4 for Bohm, 109 and 108 WRC plus for those two guys. Excellent options in the infield multi-position on Bohm. And then Brandon Marsh, talked about him yesterday again, 48.5% hard hits on the season, 3,300, 2,800. For that alone is too cheap. He also has a 12% walk rate. He strikes out a fair amount of the time, but when he puts the ball in play, he hits it with authority. He's got 9 home runs on the year, a 178 ISO, 131 WRC plus, 291, 381 spectacular on base percentage, very good batting average. If you hit the ball hard consistently, you're going to deliver pretty good triple slash, pretty good run creation numbers. The power, the home run total, the ISO could be up a little bit, but an effective option for 3,300, 2,800 from the left side late in the lineup. Jake Cave, a little bit less effective. At least he's got multi-position eligibility for 26 on the DK slate. 5 homers, 3 steals, and 155. 86 WRC plus, though. Limited option there. Going up against Aaron Nola, kind of takes the Brewers down. Couple big spots overall as far as the appeal goes. They do have a lot of cheap hitters. They do have a lot of multi-position guys on the FanDuel slate. No multi-position guys on the DK slate. But overall, I think I prefer the Nola side here. 10-6, 10-3. 25.6% strikeout rate, a 4.30 ERA, but a much better 3.74 xFIP. Walks sitting at 6%. A lot of contact this year, a lot of home runs this year, 4.27% home runs. Some uncharacteristic output for Aaron Nola. Last year was a 2.35% home run rate on 31.6% hard hits. That was a much, much better season. 3.6% walks. Year before, a few more home runs, but fewer than this year. 5.2% walks. 4.63 ERA that year is kind of looking a little bit more like this season, but a 3.37 xFIP was better than this year's xFIP. So the walks are hurting him a little bit. The premium contact's hurting him a little bit. On the right day, though, we're still talking about a very, very high-end pitcher. Let's see. What's the recent run look like? I didn't write his name down. Last 2 times, 2 home runs against San Francisco on the 21st. 5 strikeouts, 7 innings that game. 9 strikeouts, 1 hit, 1 walk in 7 versus St. Louis the last time out. That sounds pretty good. Let me make sure that was actually Aaron Nola. Since I didn't write the article, I just kind of took some quick pitching notes on just to make sure I wasn't looking at incorrectly looking at some guys making short starts or anything like that. I like to check what the recent innings have been and when they've pitched, obviously. We don't want to run into saying something good about a guy who's last pitched in like May. But yeah, that was Nola. 7 innings each of the last 2 times, to reiterate. A good 9 strikeout performance, 1 walk, 1 hit against the Cardinals. Not that we're saying that that's indicative of why he's good today. It's just indicative of Aaron Nola, typically good start. And I think that's around your ceiling today, probably against Milwaukee. Milwaukee, not the man-for-man lineup that the Cardinals are. Some interesting bats in there. Christian Yelich, William Contreras. Carlos Santana to a lesser extent, 3,600, 2,800 for the switch hitter. But I do like these 2 bats. Contreras is one of the high-value catchers on the slate because of where he hits in the lineup. Also gives you a 281, 358, 455, or 458, 122 WRC plus, 14 home runs on the year. A 5.95 in the home run model. It's not nothing. There's a little bit of power showing through for some of these guys, some of the more obvious names in this lineup. They, again, are very cheap on both sites. They're easy enough to build with, but I just don't love throwing pitchers at Aaron Nola, even this version of Aaron Nola, even with the power. Not my favorite spot on the board. A couple mix-in stacks at most, I think, for the Brewers side. Sal Frelick, 4,200, 3,200. Had a good first couple of weeks, but is cooled. 240, 361, 385 overall. Still at a 107 WRC plus, 3 homers, 6 steals. Not uninteresting for the price when you're going to Brewers. Certainly the spot in the lineup justifies some shares. Willy Adames, flawed power hitter, fairly high strikeout rate, 22 home runs on the year, only a 184 ISO, 12% worse than average grading runs. Cheap for his power at shortstop, but really, really inconsistent. Kana, Turang, Monasterio, Tyrone Taylor, just mix and match guys for very cheap salaries, mostly on the FanDuel slate where they've got multi-position for 3 of those guys. Mostly below average run creators. Any one of them could turn on a ball, hit you a home run. Most of them can steal some bases. 7 stolen bases for Kana, 17 for Turang, 7 each for Monasterio and Taylor. Kana, the only guy above average for run creation in his 404 plate appearances. But limited barrels, limited premium contact. Fair amount of strikeouts. Well, Okay for limiting strikeouts, I guess. So I like the upside. I think this bottom quarter of the lineup here supports the or bottom third rather supports the Aaron Nola upside. Wrong day, Tyrone Taylor could easily hit a home run off Nola, but well, maybe it wouldn't be easy, but he could hit a home run off of Nola. But I like the upside that gives to Aaron Nola here. Get through Yelich, get through Contreras a couple times, and then you've got a relatively easy run here. So it's a good spot for Nola. 10-6, 10-3. Hopefully he falls by the wayside a little bit for the abundance of options. People going to some of the value guys. I think he'll be somewhat highly owned among the best starting pitching options on the slate. So we're throwing Phillies bats at Colin Ray. We're taking our shares of Aaron Nola. No love at all for Colin Ray. Only a few limited Brewer stacks. Come on. All right, let's get into it. The Pirates, as I was talking about at the top of the show, projecting out oddly well in the model. Not really in terms of home run upside, but they overall projected to the third spot in the model by fantasy point projections in this spot against Drew Rom today. I don't fully have an explanation for it. It is a improved version of the 1 through 7 here. Miguel Andujar creeping into the lineup here is kind of interesting. Not a good 34 plate appearances this year, but did manage 2 home runs at 219 ISO in the tiny sample. Decent barrel rate. We've seen him deliver. It was a number of years ago at this point, but there's not much track record other than that to go on. He's spent most of his career in the minors, but I do think he creeps in here as an interesting righty bat against Drew Rom. Liover Peguero, interesting righty bat late in the lineup with a little bit of believable power upside that we've seen perform decently well at a very cheap price. Multi-position eligible on both sides now. Ji-Hwan Bae, Alika Williams, kind of limited guys at the bottom. And then we've got this pretty sturdy top end. So I kind of like the Pirates here. They're very cheap. They're easy to get to. They rank out very high for points per dollar. They were only 10th for home run upside. You can see nobody over the magic number for home run upside. And we have the version of the lineup without Jack Suwinski, so it actually goes down from where it was. That is a bit of a ding, but he was projected in, I think, this spot in the lineup against a fellow lefty, and he suffers lefty-lefty. So overall, maybe it's not that big of a downgrade. He might end up pinch hitting late in the game. Who knows? But I think it's a downgrade in terms of the way that the model was showing it, more so than it's a downgrade in what's actually out there for us to use today. Brian Hayes, 49.2% hard hits, up to 11 home runs, 268, 309, 439, 98 WRC plus. We're almost there. We got a little bit of pushing to do before we get up over the waterline, but I like his chances to get over that for the season. Only 4,400, 3,300. Brian Reynolds, moderate output, 19 homers, 10 steals, 110 WRC plus. Not as good as he needs to be for this team, but still makes very good contact. Limited strikeouts. Pretty affordable for his talent, for his ceiling on any given slate. McCutchen, very affordable at 4,200 in the outfield. 12 homers, 10 steals. These haven't been really increasing all that quickly, but still 369 on base, still 9% better than the average for run creation. Connor Joe, good against lefties, 3,500, 2,700, 9 home runs on the season. Most of the power came in against lefties, 42.7% hard hits overall, very cheap first base and outfield. Andy Rodriguez, switch hitter, good power option. I think we've seen it twice, 2 home runs, 132 ISO, 124 plate appearances in the minors. He had 6 this year, 4 stolen bases in 315. In high A in 2022, 16 homers in 370 plate appearances, added 8 in 138 at double A, 15 in low A the year before that. So the quick ascendancy makes it a little bit difficult to tell what the power actually looks like. It's only moderately projected in terms of the traditional scouting numbers, but he was picking up some better scouting reports for power on the way up with those couple of seasons through the low levels of the minors. So I do think that there's realistic power upside. They keep rolling him out in the middle of the lineup. He's making only okay contact, but he's delivered 2 homers. So a good option for cheap. Definitely a cheap catcher bat. Not a massive number in the home run model by any means, but a targetable enough pitcher here, I think. 21.7% strikeouts in his 2 starts, 9 innings, 10.9% walks, a 6.01 xFIP behind the 8.0 ERA, and has given up a little bit of power with a 4.35% home run rate. And most interestingly, most interestingly, 19.4% barrels. To put the numbers on it, 6 strikeouts, 2 earned runs on a homer, and 5 hits in 5 1/3 against the Phillies last time. It's a pretty good performance. 3 2/3 the first time out, 4 strikeouts, 4 walks, 8 runs, 6 of them earned, 8 hits against this Pirates team. Not that that's why we're seeing value for this Pirates team today, but there is the upside of, hey, they just got this guy. Don't make your decisions because of that, but at least it supports the narrative. Cardinals side, I think you could definitely throw some cards bats at Thomas Hatch, who is opening this game ahead of Bailey Falter. Hatch, only an inning or two, limited strikeout performances so far on the season, an 18.2% strikeout rate in 19 2/3, only one opening performance, the others in relief, but a very low-end limited option. If you're inclined to go toward relievers, he's not nearly on the board at 7,400 for an inning on the DK slate, 55 on FanDuel, no thank you. Falter, I don't think we need. 4 2/3, 3 strikeouts, 6 earned runs on a home run against Chicago, against the Cubbies the last time out. As a straight starter. 6 innings with 8 strikeouts in bulk relief, the start before that against this Cardinals team. So you do get that possible potential of Bailey Falter having the weird game again. What's his pricing? 65.74. I think the bulk reliever, obviously, you're more viable of these pitchers if you want to throw that dart on DK. But do you really want to go up against the Cards lineup that does have talented guys as much as they underwhelm? I just don't want to go to a pitcher with a 17.6% strikeout rate and hope for that kind of ceiling game again in limited innings out of the bulk relief appearance. So it just doesn't make that much sense for me. 5.04 ERA, a 4.49 xFIP. Doesn't get himself in trouble by walks, but it looks like there's some BABIP in there. There's been plenty of power and home runs. Not really seeing it for the Bailey Falter option. Card side, I do think you can go to Lars Nootbaar back in the leadoff role, lefty hitter, 4,500, 3,300, a little bit of power, a little bit of speed, good on base skills with a 380 on base, ahead of the team's fantastic power core. Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Gorman, Nolan Arenado, 10.4, 12.5, 11.2 in the home run model today. Those are geared against Hatch, but it's pretty similar if we went through the effort of switching it all over to show Bailey Falter. It would look pretty similar because he's given up a fair amount of contact this year. So I think there's plenty of upside for power for the Cardinals. Wilson Contreras in the heart of the lineup, 4,000, 2,700. Another fairly high priority catcher. 16 home runs on the season, a 189 ISO, creating runs 20% better than average over 450 plate appearances as an almost everyday catcher. 11.8% barrels, 46% hard hits. Tyler O'Neill, underperforming overall in his 228 plate appearances, 7 home runs, a 167 ISO, 2% worse than average for run creation, but he's very cheap. 34 home runs and 15 steals 2 years ago. Really like Tyler O'Neill when he's healthy. Tommy Edman, Jordan Walker, Mason Wynn, mix and match parts late in the lineup with a lot of quality. Edman, a little bit below average this year, but decent for counting stats on the right day. Walker, a little bit above average, decent for counting stats on the right day. Mason Wynn, top-end prospect for the hit tool and speed and defense. Hasn't really done anything yet in the show. 182, 200, 227, a 14 WRC+. Priority bats from 1 through 6 with 2 good bolt-ons at least and a very cheap shortstop bolt-on. That's not bad. So Cards get a little bit of love from me. I am a sucker for the Cardinals, like always. They don't rank great. 17th by collective fantasy point projections. A lot of the projections fall off from here down, as you can see. 21st by point per dollar on FanDuel. 20th by point per dollar on DK. Also not great. Some expensive bats up at the top. 3rd by home run upside, though. It's a deep lineup. It's one, again, I'm a sucker for this team. So trust the projections. Don't have to rush there if you don't want to. If you're trusting the projections, though, I think you do have to rush to the Pirates value. So take that for what it's worth. That spot is, I don't know. I don't love it. I don't fully understand it. But when things like that pop through the model, I do tend to go with them. So if we get shut out on it, blame math. Don't blame me. Pirates are in my placeholder. Let's move on from this one. So, neither pitcher. Just on talent, even. Nah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to trust the rankings. Pirates bats, Cardinals bats. Fuck it. High strikeout Twins going up against Jordan Montgomery. I think it's a good spot for Montgomery to reclaim the mini run that he had been on. Over 6 straight with 6 straight starts with only one of them being not great. It was a 5 earned run game back on July 23rd. It was 6 straight starts of 6 innings and then an 8 inning start. So 7 deep good starts, or 6 of 7 of them were good. All of them were at least 6 innings. One of them, one of the 7 went 8 innings. Then he came out last time, kind of a clunker, 5 1/3, 4 hits, 4 strikeouts, 2 walks, couple of earned runs, and a short start. He came out of the game pretty early. So that was the concerning part. The limited strikeouts weren't great. Was it only 1 earned run though? The short start was the more concerning thing, just from a pitcher that we're used to seeing go deep into games. Why did he come out of that game? Oh, God damn it. Fantasy. 5 1/3, 3 earned runs. Okay. I had not written down the number for whatever reason. There should be a 3 here. All right. So 3 earned runs, 5 1/3. And I mean, he went into the 6th inning. He just didn't complete it. It's a non-tragic start, but it's a little bit of a blip. That was against the Twins. So it's the same team coming back here for Montgomery. I think there's upside for him for strikeouts. 27.1% strikeout rate collectively for the projected Twins roster. Do we have it confirmed? We probably do. Hey, buddy, could you scratch your itch outside the room, pal? Joker scratching an itch and jingling something on his collar, if you heard that noise back there. Twins, and might as well grab the Rangers while we're here. Sam Huff in the Rangers lineup today. Obi-Wan says, don't blame Terry. Yeah, I never know how to put that, where I'm saying, like, look, I trust my model, but you don't have to. I think that it might come through, but you don't have to. I don't necessarily want to tell you to go play the Pirates in, like, big swaths, but I might have some. I never know quite how to put that when I'm saying, like, hey, if it doesn't work, don't blame me. Certainly blame me. I'm the one telling you to do it. Oh, Riley Green went to the IL. That sucks. Certainly you can blame me if you want to, but it's me trying to convey that I'm going into it with hesitation and not really fully believing, but trusting for whatever reason. So yeah, always a clunky thing for me to try and explain. Jake Swale says, Hayes going yard. Rom is so bad. I like it, buddy. I'm with you. Andy Rodriguez, solid catching option. Piguero is nice. I have been playing a lot of Piguero when I've gone to the Pirates lately, so I'll have a pretty good amount. Lone Wolf, which game was that specifically that you're talking about for home runs up 23%? Obi-Wan says, blame the button pusher. Yeah, you click it, it's your fault. You put it in your lineup. No, but I like Jordan Montgomery here. 99, 98, priced correctly. He's a good pitcher. Has for years been a very good innings, depth of innings guy. Handful of strikeouts, fairly clean innings opportunities. Doesn't give up a ton of power, but a little bit more of a real life pitcher than a DFS pitcher. But against a team with a lot of strikeouts in that lineup, 27.1% for the confirmed lineup, I do think there's a strikeout ceiling for Montgomery. For the price, it's a fairly good spot. On the Twins side, you could probably stack a few Twins, but it's not great. There's not a lot of power showing through. Montgomery's limited home runs to 2.22% this year on 7.8% barrels. Doesn't really get burnt by power that much. Solano, Polanco, Royce Lewis, Carlos Correa. A lot of infielders to use in this team, like I talked about yesterday, which I do think makes them interesting, particularly when Kyle Farmer's also in there. He's always very cheap. He's got 3 infield positions on FanDuel, 2 on the DK slate. He joins Carlos Correa at shortstop on DK. Royce Lewis at third base on DK, shortstop third base on FanDuel. Polanco, second base, third base, both sites. Solano, first base only on DK, a little less value than first, second, and third for $2,200 on the FanDuel slate. There's a lot of really cheap hitters here. They do give you a lot of positional flexibility on both sites, less so on DK, especially when they're both at second and third base. So less flexibility overall on DK, but very dynamic flexibility on the FanDuel slate. So a little bit of interest here. There's power for basically everybody in the lineup. Jordan Luplow this year, only 2 home runs in 61 plate appearances, a 151 ISO, only an 84 WRC+. Still haven't figured out why he's showing a 0 there. That's weird. There's a couple rookies that just have no track record that are showing zeros in the home run model today, but Liplo should be at like a 3 or 4 or 5, somewhere on there. He's got enough track record that's got to be a data blip back there somewhere. Last year, 11 home runs in 234, 11 in 193 the year before. So he's got a little bit of pop from the right side. Farmer, mid-teens home run output each of the last 2. 8 home runs on the board this year in 284. Not been great overall. 94 WRC plus, 143 ISO. An okay triple slash, but an interesting, sneaky little bat that knows how to hit a home run on the right day. Ryan Jeffers has power behind the plate. Pretty good contact profile in his 267 with 10 home runs on the board, a 198 ISO. Matt Wallner's been a very good home run hitter in 166 plate appearances, 10 home runs, phenomenal contact profile, a 271 ISO, but limited expectations around a very limited sample of 166. Michael A. at the bottom of the lineup, 12.9% barrels, 20 home runs on the season, 13 steals, 98 WRC plus, a 225 ISO. Out of Michael A's 20 home runs, how many of them were owned by more than 5% of the field on either side? 1, 2, not many. He does not ever get attention at the bottom of the lineup. Always like going to Michael A when I'm stacking Twins. I think he's a very effective option. He doesn't get on base enough to really support the idea of him being a good wraparound, but he does have 13 steals. So if he does get on, he's running, he's maybe helping set the table for the other guys. But I like his power. It's home run hunting when I go to him. Top of the lineup is good. I mean, you're talking about a premium power bat in the infield for cheap, 44.29. Premium power bat that used to be a star in the infield for cheap. Lousy season from Correa, but we know there's talent there. Royce Lewis has been delivering in his 165 plate appearances, 38% above average, 9 home runs, 3 steals. Very, very good triple slash in a small sample. Decent number in the home run mark in the home run model. Only 42-32 too. 32 also. He's cheap. Solano's like hit tool oriented. No power to speak of, but gets on base at a good clip ahead of these guys. So I'm not leaving Solano out of twin stacks that often. But I prefer the Montgomery side. Pretty strong over there. Dallas Keuchel, 6 1/3 with 3 strikeouts, 1 hit against Pittsburgh, 2 starts back, 5 innings, 5 hits, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts, but no earned runs against Texas, against this team the last time out. Probably his ceiling again today. Really limited pitcher overall. 7.8% strikeout rate with a matching 7.8% walk rate. 3.50 ERA with a 5.14 xFIP in his 3 starts. So those starts I read were basically his season. Never really has been bad at giving up power. Always has been good at focused on limiting launch angle, limiting fly balls. This year it popped up to 3.63 in a limited sample of 60 2/3. 2 years ago 3.47, so it was up a little bit that year despite keeping the ball down. Only 13.2% strikeout rates though. This is the highlight, right? He was bad this season in his last full year. 5.28 ERA with a 4.74 xFIP, only 13% strikeouts. Last year, it was disastrous in 60 2/3, only 14.9% strikeouts. And this year, he's even worse at finding strikeouts. Do we want to throw this guy against the Texas Rangers on a fairly deep pitching slate, gang? I don't think so. I heard like the classroom, like, no, kind of thing there. Not that you guys are in a classroom, but, just the call and response thing. Rangers bats definitely in play. Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, 2 superstars off the top of the lineup. Semien, 20 home runs despite a limited contact profile. It's just kind of how he does it. Low strikeout rate. He's lowered it a little bit. He's boosted the walks a little bit. Definitely a good season from Semien. 18% better than average creating runs. Less overall power with a 180 ISO, but the counting stats are great. 273, 346. Get him on base ahead of Corey Seager, who's just all world at shortstop. 345, 410, 655, a 310 ISO, a 183 WRC plus. MVP caliber season. Only 415 plate appearances is the only limiting factor in his season, and still very, very strong numbers. 17.9% barrels, 56% hard hits. Just one of the best overall players in baseball. Left-handed shortstop, ton of value. The only guy in this lineup over the magic number for home runs against Dallas Keuchel, but Adolis Garcia right there at 9.5. He's got 32 homers, a 120 WRC plus, a 245 ISO. Nathaniel Lowe, talk about it all the time. 4,500, 3,300 for a guy. 282, 374, 447 on the season. 27% better than average creating runs. Decent pop at 15 home runs from the left side. 40.4% barrel hard hit rate. Walks 12.5% of the time. Doesn't strike out that much. Very, very good bat at first base for those cheap prices. 525 in the East. Jake Swales says Seager is awesome. Only reason no MVP is because he missed a good amount of time. Yeah, I mean, that's why he's not the actual MVP candidate. It would be an interesting race if he had a full season delivering these kind of numbers between him and Ohtani. I don't know what the overall wins above replacement number, the WAR, looks like for Seager. I'm sure it's very, very good. But Ohtani obviously pads that with his dual action WAR. But he's obviously very valuable. But to me, I do think you gain ground. I know it's a individual award, and it's not supposed to necessarily be team-related, but I do think you gain ground, at least in my book, by being a very high-end contributor on a team that's actually good. I do think there's some argument to be made that, you know, some value has to be extracted from delivering as a team, especially when, like Ohtani, you're on a team that should not have been as bad as it was. So he obviously delivered. It's not his fault. I'm not saying that, but I do think you gain ground by your team being good in those kind of races. Not that Seager's going to win the MVP this year. As Jake's saying, he missed too much time. Mitch Garver, power hitting catcher for 3,900, 3,000, 13 homers on the season at 236 ISO, a 136 WRC plus. Killer season from Mitch in, again, also limited 238 plate appearances. Robbie Grossman, 3,000, 2,500, at least helps offset price. 8 home runs, 94 WRC plus, a middling kind of a veteran bat. Ezekiel Duran, Leody Taveras have both come down in quality recently. Sam Huff is your second catcher today instead of Jonah Heim. Playable part, 47.8% hard hit rate, 8.7% barrel rate, 1 home run in 40 plate appearances. Limited sample as far as those contact numbers. 4 homers last year and 132. You know, reasonable as your third copy of a copy, kind of a catcher in this lineup. They've just got a lot of powerhouse catchers. I think Sam Huff's moderately playable for 22-21 in lineups that you don't go to Mitch Garver on DK. You can play them both on FanDuel in a really weird construction, but I think that's probably too cute by half. Talked about pretty much everybody. Taveras, like I said, still valuable to me. 12 home runs, 11 steals. The counting stats have slowed. The on bases dipped below 300 now. That's concerning. The average isn't really there anymore than 92 WRC plus. But just a guy with skills, a guy with tools. So I like guys with tools. I heard it too. 3,300, 2,600. Very, very cheap at the bottom of the lineup. At least an effective wraparound play. Who has done it this season, was doing it at a much higher level earlier in the year. Ezekiel Duran, still triple position eligible, 2,700 on the FanDuel slate. A lot of value. Less so on DK at only third base for 3,800. Still maintaining a very healthy contact profile. 14 home runs, 8 stolen bases, a 113 WRC plus overall. So, Jordan Montgomery, Rangers bats, Twins values. No Dallas Keuchel. Coors Field. That's like the alert. Like, Coors Field, morning. Don't think we need to go to either one of these pitchers. Kikuchi, borderline, value priced, 75, 88. It's kind of like the Charlie Morton situation the other day where Morton did end up succeeding and would have been a decent play. I can see it, but I don't trust it. I don't believe in it. Kikuchi still, to me, is that home run target. I know he's been much better this year. I know that he's limited. He's down to below 4% home runs. That's a major accomplishment for him. Given a 5.07 last year and a 4.05 the year before, all this premium contact that he allows, that's an accomplishment. He's really harnessed his contact numbers this year. He gave up a homer the last time out, but he had gone 7 straight starts without giving up one before that. Really good run of low run totals. Went 6, struck out 8 despite the home run that last time. Gave up 4 earned runs, 6 hits, 2 walks. That's against Cleveland. Getting 8 strikeouts against that lineup is also an accomplishment. Giving up a home run and 4 earned runs on 6 hits to that lineup, not great. But maybe, given his strikeout upside, given the fact that he's a left-handed pitcher going up against this Rockies team, it's another spot that's probably just too cute. Maybe there's... I don't want to tell anybody to do it. On DK at 75, I think you can. 88 on FanDuel will probably keep me from doing it. I don't think he's quite cheap enough on FanDuel. 75 on DK. the right day for strikeouts against this team. There's a little bit of ceiling there. Active roster for the Rockies, as we've talked about, is just a major spot for targeting against left-handed pitchers. In a non-small sample of 1,005 plate appearances, technically it does rank 21st in baseball, but not that there's not much separation between them and like the middle of the league at 1,056 for the Royals. Top of the board is 1,500 odd plate appearances for the Phillies because they've mostly had that lineup intact all season. But, a not insignificant sample of plate appearances for the Rockies here. They sit at the very bottom of baseball with a 49 WRC plus collectively. That means as a group, as an active roster, they're 51% worse than league average on the average creating runs. They've got a 30.9% strikeout rate against left-handed pitching. That's by far the worst in baseball this year. Next worst is the Mariners at 26.7. There's a lot of daylight between those two. A 133 collective ISO is second worst in baseball against lefties. Yeah, it's Coors Field. Yeah, Kikuchi's still vulnerable for home run upside. Yeah, there's a little bit of power shining through for the Rockies. God damn it, I might be talking myself into a few Kikuchi shares even on FanDuel. I don't like it. I don't love it. I'm not comfortable with it, but I think it's on the board. Doesn't project out great. You need him to find the strikeouts. You need him to stay clean for home run power. But this team against lefties, I said it a few weeks ago that I was going to continue targeting them with lefties, including Coors Field. I think I might do it. I think I might take some darts. Not comfy. Better on DK at 75, obviously. Ty Black, no love. Okay, somewhat effective at limiting home runs, 2.88% home runs. 7 innings, 7 strikeouts, an earned run on a home run, 3 hits, 1 walk at Baltimore the last time out. 4 innings, 3 earned run at Tampa Bay before that. 5-inning home start, only 2 strikeouts with Arizona in town before that in Coors Field. But an okay 5 innings, just only 2 strikeouts. Always a low strikeout option. Technically, he's only allowed 2 home runs in 7 starts at Coors Field this year. That's Ty Black. I don't think that puts him on the board, but it's the only explanation I have for why these numbers are so low. Also, outside of when you look at the averages, outside of the fact that there's 2 zeros in here for Mason McCoy and Ernie Clement. Clement should probably not be at a 0, but he would be low. But like Davis Schneider, Vladdy pulling okay numbers, but not Coors Field numbers. And then Alejandro Kirk, pretty low numbers. Do we have this actual lineup? I'm sure we do. Let's talk about the guys who are actually in the lineup. It's essentially this version. Also got the Rockies lineup. Drop that in real quick. I realize we're kind of meandering through some of these, but not having written the article, some of it required a little bit of thought, like the Kikuchi spot, and required a little bit of talking myself into it that I would normally do while writing the article and looking at these numbers. I would normally come into this with a little bit more of a firm position on that Kikuchi play. But Black is interesting. This you see all the low numbers in the home run model, so maybe it takes the gleam off the very popular, I'm sure, Blue Jays. They do have a 7+ implied total. They're the most likely spot on the entire slate in all of baseball tonight to score a massive amount of runs. I don't want to say that they're not. I don't want to have anybody leave this show thinking that I don't think the Blue Jays are in a tremendous spot for run creation today. What I am saying is that Black's been okay at limiting home runs on the whole. He's only given up 2 in 7 starts at Coors. He's having a limiting impact on a kind of lower end version of this Blue Jays lineup on the whole. So I don't necessarily hate it. I mean, I'm not that I'm going to Black shares, but I don't necessarily hate the idea of undercutting all that Blue Jays ownership that I expect. So maybe it's a day today where I'm spreading out to some of those other 5+ run totals. There were a lot of them. There's a lot of offensive spots on the board today. I might leave Coors Field a little bit to the public today. If you're going to Rockies bats against Kikuchi, Charlie Blackmon, Ryan McMahon, lefty, not great options. Ryan McMahon, particularly limited, lefty. Blackman's more of just an on-base and hit-to-a-focused option these days anyway. Ezequiel Tovar, up to 15 home runs overall, 171 ISO still 23% worse than average for run creation on the whole. The interesting hitters for me are probably really like right here. Elias Diaz is an interesting catcher, 4,300, 3,200. He's very cheap, pretty good triple slash. 16% worse than average for run creation overall is not great, particularly when you play half your games at Coors Field. But I'll take the cheap home runs if I'm catcher hunting at Coors Field. He is hitting at least, high up in the lineup, so that's valuable in and of itself. Just the idea of getting a very cheap catcher at Coors Field hitting cleanup, that lofts the play a little bit. Nolan Jones, pretty good results so far, lefty. Overall, 284, 367, 523, a 123 WRC plus, 14 homers in 300 plate appearances. He's been their best bat in his 300 plate appearances. Brendan Rodgers, mid-range power over the last couple of seasons, hasn't delivered anything yet in 89 opportunities, but a righty bat to throw at Kikuchi. The idea of power for Eleuders Montero at the bottom of the lineup, Sean Borchard, Brenton Doyle, mix and match kind of guys. Limited Rockies lineup. They're that bad against lefties for a reason on the season. I did not mean that to rhyme. Blue Jay stack. I talked about the limited power potential, but we do obviously still have a couple stars here in Vladdy Guerrero, in George Springer. Both underperforming their expectations on the season, but both have okay stats. 17 homers, 19 steals for Springer, 20 homers for Vladdy. Both above average for run creation. Vladdy 13% above average. Springer only 3% above average. Disappointing ISOs, disappointing overall statistical output. Good premium contact profile still for Vladdy, just not seeing the results for it. Down lineup gets kind of weak compared to where this team, normally we think of this team in terms of power. Whit Merrifield, 11 home runs on the season, 25 steals is very good, a 105 WRC plus, but not overall much of a power hitter. 2.8% barrels, 24.6% hard hits. Alejandro Kirk, 4.6% barrels. Ernie Clement, 4.8% so far. Santiago Espinal and Kevin Kiermaier, weak for barrels, weak for premium contact. A lot of low home run totals here outside of Dalton Varsho. 16 homers, 15 steals. That's still kind of disappointing for that guy who they brought into town on the back of a 27 homer, 16 steal campaign last year in about 100 more plate appearances. Down in terms of barrel rate, 10.2% barrels last year, down to 7.3% this year. That's your culprit for why Dalton Varsho is not as good as he was last year. He's still very cheap. I think he's probably one of your higher priority bats when you go to Blue Jays here. The hope is that down lineup and for the idea of underperformance this season, maybe he comes cheap against the fellow lefty. But I don't really love this Blue Jays lineup overall. I don't love the way that they're aligning for power in this spot today. You're just looking at a bunch of like base hit oriented guys who don't really do that all that well. Plus the obvious stars at the top. I like the top four fine, but they're going to be really popular. I don't love the spot for the Blue Jays. It's weird. Davis Schneider's interesting enough. 5,000, 3,500, but he'll be crazy popular hitting second. 6 home runs in only 62 plate appearances, a 270 WRC plus, a 451 ISO. I don't think he's 170% better than the league average, but maybe he is. Who knows? Maybe he's going to be that guy for his entire career, go down as the best player ever. Going to be a lot of ownership on him to find out tonight. Yusei Kikuchi. Blue Jays bats. Rockies bats. No tie black. Boy, did I talk myself into that Kikuchi spot while I was breaking that game down. Holy shit. Not good. Coming up on 5:40. What do we got? 3 games to go? 3 games to go. Should be able to punch out at a reasonable time. Orioles and Diamondbacks. We've got the D-backs lineup. We do not have the Orioles lineup yet. A lot of lineups in. We're missing the Orioles, and that's it. That's awesome. I love jumping off the show when I've got all the lineups. It makes it so much smoother. Especially now that I've got a lot of these rookies in and a lot of guys not missing projections and shit like that, so there's not a lot of corrections to be made. When I can just go from show to building lineups like in a couple swift moves, it's pretty good. Helps a lot. Let's see. Where do we want to start this one? Let's start with a value play. Slate Ciccone. Kind of projects out all right. I'm not really sure why. 2.57 ERA is fine in his 21 innings, 3 starts, but a 4.83 xFIP. Only walking 4.9% in the small sample is fine. 17.1% strikeout rate. Last time out, 5 2/3, 5 strikeouts, 1 earned run on only 3 hits to 20 Reds hitters. I don't think the Reds are quite as good as the Orioles, but they're a frisky young team. 1 earned run on 3 hits with a homer, allowed only 2 strikeouts in 5 innings before that. That was against the Rangers. It's a pretty decent result over 5 innings against the Rangers. Give up only a solo home run, only struck out 2. You'd like to see more Ks than that, but that's an okay start. I know we've looked at Ciccone before, but he's never quite been as on the board. This year for Arizona, AAA, a 6.38 ERA is not all that encouraging, a 5.43 xFIP, but it's important to remember this is the PCL. 23.1% strikeouts, 6.4% walks is pretty good. Sustained low 20s and low walk rates in his brief minor league career is kind of encouraging. I don't sweat all the home runs in the PCL. That's fine. 23 home runs to 450 hitters in the PCL. But when I say PCL, it's the Pacific Coast League for people who might not know. That's the minor league organization here and for a lot of these West Coast teams. And it plays a lot of ballparks in that league play like Coors Field. I believe their AAA team is Albuquerque, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, come on, keyboard. Really? I'm trying to type the word Albuquerque and you crap out on me, stupid wireless keyboard. Elevation of Albuquerque, New Mexico ranges from 4,900 feet above sea level near the Rio Grande in the valley to over 6,700 feet above sea level in the foothills. I have no idea where relatively the stadium is, but that's pretty high above sea level. Thin air in Albuquerque. Bugs Bunny always was going to Albuquerque. Is Bugs Bunny still a thing? Any people out there with kids still have their kids watch Bugs Bunny cartoons? I feel like I never see Bugs and those guys on TV outside of the stupid Space Jam movie. Not the original Space Jam. Original Space Jam. Fantastic. Well, not fantastic, but a fun romp. The new Space Jam with LeBron, it's bad. Orioles bats have really been giving me headaches lately, says Greg Biancone. Yeah, I agree with that, Greg. It's a team I like getting to, but I just don't seem to succeed all that often with them for whatever reason. Yeah, Obi-Wan, right? We don't see Bugs anymore. You're never flipping through like I'm sure maybe like Cartoon Network or whatever. And I think one of the streamers has a big catalog of them. I think it's HBO Max. But yeah, it just doesn't seem like as big a thing anymore. Some of it makes sense, right? A lot of those cartoons were made in like the 40s. So, 80 years later, I guess it does lose a little bit of cultural cachet. But you would think that like such classic characters, they would continue to update them. Just more shitty stuff from Warner Brothers, I guess. Bugs, Porky Pig, Daffy. Yep. With you, buddy. All those great old cartoons, too, to the Merry Melodies. Yep. With all the classic cartoons that they would use all that public domain classical music to. Also, so there's probably a pretty wide swath of the classical music that I know that is just directly attributable to watching those old cartoons back then. Yep, Greg, I'm with you. Mel Blanc. Mel Blanc was the... granted, it wasn't like when I grew up, like, that was again through the 40s, through the 60s and everything when a lot of those were recorded. But that was the Bugs Bunny voice that I grew up with, and all the different character voices that I grew up with. And then there was that noticeable, after he died, noticeable change. And I don't feel like it's ever gotten back, which is always weird. It's always weird to me because everybody knows like good people who can do a good Bugs Bunny, a good Elmer Fudd, a good this, that, the other thing. That's why I'm really curious to see what happens with Rick and Morty this year. I don't know if there's any Rick and Morty fans out there, but Justin Roiland not doing the voice of the two main characters anymore. It's going to be interesting. Those two characters have to do 80% of the talking on that show, and he was doing both voices back and forth. Think what you will of Roiland, but obviously that's going to be an interesting situation for that show to see how that works out. But to me, anytime they change a character, I've never heard one go seamlessly. I've never heard a character voice change go unnoticeably. I think the way that they handled Solar Opposites, Roiland's other show, was actually kind of interesting. They brought in, what's his name? English dude from Downton Abbey. And they were like, oh, he got hit in the throat with a voice changer array because he's an alien, so you can make shut up. And they were just like, yeah, he speaks with an English accent now. And that's it. Just move on. Charles Moran says AI will make Rick and Morty. That's actually, since they haven't announced the name of the actor, it's not completely out of the question that might be exactly what they do. That's an interesting point, Charles. You can absolutely pull it off these days. It's going to get really, really interesting and really kind of frightening really fast. Did you see? Let's not get political when I say this name. I just want to talk about it from the AI in media perspective, okay? Some news organization that was politically aligned with him had Donald Trump on for an interview that went like 15 minutes on their air the other day. And it was a news organization that I'm not familiar with. That's why I'm describing it that way. I'm not familiar with them, but they aired the clip. It was almost definitely an AI. It was either a really bad impersonator who needed to think slowly before he said each of his jokes, or it was AI. It was not. I have heard that man speak for years and years and years now, and it was not him. That blew my mind. That they were that fooled by it blew my mind. Anyway, let's not get political. Again, whatever side of that man you're on, the former president, whatever side you're on, whatever you think, we don't want to get into that. The AI is the focus in that story. But it's all over. It was all over Twitter like 2 days ago. Kind of blew my mind. But I think we're going to get a lot of that where it's like, oh shit, that wasn't the real whoever. Yeah, the deep fakes, Charles Moran. Exactly. That's crazy how good they're getting. The new Indiana Jones movie with the that was probably the most seamless version of the de-aging that I've seen, and that's essentially deep fake technology, right? So I mean, if they can do that, they can put anybody's face on basically anything. Yeah, it's getting into some craziness with that stuff. What I think, I couldn't help but think the other day while I was watching that the Han Solo, the Solo Star Wars story movie, which I said yesterday that I fired that up the other night because I had forgotten to mention it in the Star Wars rankings. When I was watching that the other day, I couldn't help but sit there thinking, boy, if somebody went back in and just slapped that old Harrison Ford face on this kid, this movie would go up by like 5%. I didn't think the kid was bad. There's a couple shots even where it was just like, oh, look, they kind of captured Harrison Ford look there. But if they had made that movie this year, they would have definitely just done a de-aged Harrison Ford in it, which I think would be a little better. I'm sure that's probably out there at this point on the internet. And as Nolan Knocking says, back to baseball. 5:47. This is what we could do on a lazy Saturday, Labor Day. This is the kind of stuff I'd be talking about if we were all just hanging out at a barbecue, shooting the shit, smoking a joint, drinking some beers, eating some burgers and stuff. We'd be just shooting the breeze about this stuff. So Slade Ciccone, I do think a little bit of value there, given that he's very value priced, given how it comes through the model. It's a spot there's maybe enough upside, but I do want to get to the Orioles. I'm going to probably both sides that one for as much as I get to Ciccone at 73 on the FanDuel slate. I'm kind of glad I'm not playing on DK where I think he'd come up a little bit more for me given the 6K price over there. But I think he's at least a dart throw given the fact that he went into the 6th the last time out, worked 5 in a start before that. If we're just hunting for innings at that value price and looking to get away from the high concentration of ownership around like David Peterson at that value price, I think he's on the board for that level of a dart throw. Kyle Bradish on the other side sounds like Radish. It literally says that in the notes that I made. 6 innings, 3 straight starts, 8 strikeouts in each of the last 2 at Oakland, then versus Colorado. So take it for what it's worth. 7 against Seattle, but everybody strikes out. 7 against Seattle. Gave up 2 earned runs in that one. 2 in the most recent. 0 in between to Colorado. Pitching well. Overall, pretty good season for Bradish. 24% strikeout rate, 3.69 xFIP underneath a 3.03 ERA that is better, but not all that different. 2.22% home runs on 90.2 miles an hour of exit velo, 43.55% hard hits that we don't sweat that much because it comes on a 7.2 degree average launch. The only issue for Bradish is the ability on the other side to limit strikeouts, some quality bats on the other side. It's not an ideal matchup, but I do think he's good enough to throw in here. 9,400, 9,900. He projects fairly effectively for those prices. He's got a ceiling on top of that. Good enough at finding his own strikeouts, so he could have a good strikeout game into the 6, 7, 8 range, even against a fairly stingy Diamondbacks team here. Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, Tommy Pham, Christian Walker. I really like that top 4. Tommy Pham just being added to that group just made it so dynamic, and he's very cheap. 3,600, 2,800, a very effective 3-hitter to have in that lineup. He's got 13 homers, 17 steals, a 115 WRC plus, a little bit of power, a little bit of speed, gets on base somewhat effectively at a 332 clip, 50% hard hits, 11.5% barrels. Just a guy who's effective at driving the ball, putting bat on ball, pretty effective getting himself to first base, and can do things when he gets on the bases. Ahead of Christian Walker is very effective, or to drive in Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte when they're doing very similar things to him ahead of him. I really like that option in that lineup. So Corbin Carroll off the top, 23 homers, 41 steals, dynamite season overall. Cooled later in the season, only 2 recent home runs, but just overall the numbers, when we step back a year from now and we're just looking at the numbers, it's just, wow, what a end-to-end tremendous season. Right now we know that he's cooled a little bit recently, but still a tremendous option. 137 WRC plus. That's what I don't want to let happen with Anthony Volpe. Like I said yesterday, I don't want to let that first ever 2020 Yankee rookie season overshadow the limited output. Although creeping up toward that 100 WRC plus. Christian Walker, low strikeout guy, 19.3% strikeouts, 9.9% walks. That's the other effective thing that could maybe creep up on Kyle Bradish on the wrong day for him. He's not bad at walking hitters. 6.7% walk rate is very good. 1.11 whip also really limits opportunities on the other side. But they've got a lot of low strikeout, high walk bats at the top of that lineup, and then a couple effective bats down toward the bottom of the lineup with Geraldo Perdomo drawing 12.5% walks and only striking out 16.5% of the time over 407. So there is a run of like 5 hitters here. 4 hitters in the first time through, and then 5 hitters once you get to Perdomo and wrap it around. That not the easiest targets in the world for Kyle Bradish. Damn it. Almost had it. Almost got through it clean. Alec Thomas, 20. Oof, that one crept up on me. Thomas for 25, 22 across sites. Okay for counting stats, 7 homers, 7 steals, only an 83 WRC plus and 307. Lourdes Gurriel, tons of home run power, 21 home runs, 208 ISO, also a low strikeout guy. He wasn't in that mix before because he doesn't walk all that much. 5.9% walks, only a 305 on base. Gabriel Moreno, cheap enough, playable catcher. 6 home runs in 300 plate appearances. 127 ISO is not great, but 99 WRC plus puts him right on the line. 6 homers, 4 steals, a 284 average, 327 on base. Effective enough, 41.7% hard hits for a $2,600 catcher that doesn't get all that popular. I think he's effective down there. Jace Peterson, weird lefty output over the past few seasons. It's just those games where it's just, holy hell, Jace Peterson's got a good score because he hit a home run, stole 2 bases, and scored a run kind of a play. But he does do that from time to time. 6 home runs, 13 steals on the year, and 383. It's not great output. 214, 307, 313. 23% worse than average creating runs. But he's very cheap. He's better where he's very, very cheap and has multi-position eligibility on FanDuel. I don't love getting him at third base on the DK slate. But I think if you're building 20 stacks of Diamondbacks, maybe you mix in, 3-4 shares of Jace Peterson in there. I think that's perfectly fine. Orioles side, I do want to get to. They confirmed this lineup. They did. Perfect. So we've got all the lineups in. Adley Rutschman leading off as usual for this team. Love that spot. Makes him one of the most valuable catchers in the entire game, especially, DFS purposes. 5,331. Even if he wasn't as good as he is, just by virtue of hitting leadoff, gaining plate appearances on DK, he has value. But he's good. 16 home runs, a 118 WRC plus, 273, 365, 418, 15% strikeouts and 12% walks, puts everything in play, or he's getting himself to first base. Just a really good option off the top. Gunnar Henderson, 54-33, fairly priced, third base shortstop on both sides, 22 home runs, 9 steals, pretty good mark in the home run model, just below the magic number. Santander also just below the magic number. No Ryan Mountcastle in today's lineup, that kind of sucks, but you do have Cedric Mullins hiding down here, lefty, kind of interesting down there. 30-30 guy, 12 and 16 this year. 109 WRC plus in 363 plate appearances. Power and speed option late in the lineup. Austin Hayes, playable part for them. 281, 329, 454. Never all that great. Never all that bad. Had a really good start to the season. Kind of cooled off over the last, let's call it like 3 months now. O'Hearn, also, hot start to the season in his 278 plate appearances. This is better than he's been in any other 278 plate appearance stretch in his entire career. I can guarantee him to you. 300, 335, 500, a 200 ISO, 126 WRC plus, 11 homers. Excellent contact profile with 10% barrels, 51.7% hard hits. Maybe the day he got to Baltimore, like what we saw from Aaron Hicks early in the season, maybe somebody just got in his ear and said like, hey man, we noticed you've been swinging with your eyes closed. Why don't you try opening your eyes? And that was just something nobody ever told him when he was on the Royals. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. I didn't expect him to get, after 100 plate appearances where he was really good. I didn't expect the next 100, let alone the next 178 to continue being good. But they kind of have. 3,526 as long as his price is cheap. First base and outfield, heart of the lineup, lefty bat, playable part. Urias, playable part, 2,700, 2,500, triple position eligible on FanDuel. Another guy that cheap, but I don't love getting him at third base. I prefer the flexibility where he comes very cheap. Only 4 home runs, only a 94 WRC plus this year. Was okay for sneaky power late in the lineup last year. Adam Frazier's been okay for sneaky power, but it's really, really weird, and I don't believe any of these 13 home runs are real. 91 WRC plus, a 163 ISO, 3.2% barrels, 24.4% hard hits. Similarly lousy last year. As I've said a number of times, 13 home runs is more than what he's done in the last 2 years put together over like 1,200 plate appearances. James McCann, better against lefties. Limited catcher option in the 9th spot. So it's Bradish, Ciccone value, Orioles bats, Diamondbacks bats. I think all 4 corners of this one are kind of in play though. 2 games to go. We meandered there for a little bit, so I guess we're not getting out by 6, but we'll have plenty of time. I know somebody in the chat was asking about this one earlier. Let me grab the lineups. Kyle Harrison, I love the pitcher. You can see it's a little bit limited in terms of the projection, but he projects competitively with the last 2 guys we were looking at worst. This is a fair projection for 85 and 9,000. Obviously, it's a FanDuel projection. I'm talking about the DK price there, so just think about it relatively, obviously. But I think the relative projection, the directional projection there, is certainly good enough to play at 85 on the DK slate, and I'm probably going to take some shots on FanDuel. I believe in this kid that much. He is the top, if not, or one of the top, if not the top pitching prospect in baseball when he got called up. He went 3 1/3 in a short start in that first day in the debut, 5 strikeouts, 2 earned runs, gave up a home run. Then he came out and threw a 6 1/3 inning, 3-hit shutout against the Reds and struck out 11 with 2 walks in that last game. Maybe not 11 strikeout upside against this Padres lineup. Maybe not going to get 7 innings, but or pitch into the 7th. But given that they took the leash off, given he went 6 1/3 in that game, struck out 11, I think there's plenty of potential for him at these prices. So I'm a believer. I'm a buyer. I'd be a more enthusiastic buyer at the DK price. I think on the single starter site with a lot of competitively priced, competitively projected options, he's kind of just more in the mix. Higher priority on DK. Going up against what we know is a top-heavy Padres lineup. I started to grab the lineups, but then I didn't finish grabbing the lineups. Looks like pretty much the regular version of it. So I don't think he's safe, but I think I'm going to have, damn it, I think I'm going to have some. That was, okay, good. Blake Snell, obvious at the top of the board. Major strikeout opportunity for him. 27.1% strikeout rate collectively for this confirmed version of the Giants lineup. Against left-handed pitching this season, they are fourth worst in baseball with a 25.1% strikeout rate. 98 WRC plus collectively for the active roster, a 151 ISO collectively. They do have a couple of righties in the lineup that are somewhat dangerous. Wilmer Flores obviously has made a career out of hitting lefties for power. 20 home runs overall on the season, a 242 ISO. Nice little year from Wilmer in 366 plate appearances. Mitch Haniger's the other guy in the lineup that I kind of fear a little bit for right-handed home run power. Hasn't really done it much this season. 4 home runs in 169 plate appearances, a 147 ISO, but we know he's a deadly power hitter from on the right day. JD Davis has really cooled, still a decent contact profile, but has really come down. 15 home runs. Most of them came against righties this year. Hasn't been as good against lefties. Paul DeJong does have a little bit of right-handed power as well. 14 home runs in 377 plate appearances, but also a 30% strikeout rate. Looks more like a target for Blake Snell upside. Snell, 31.1% strikeout rate, one of the slate leaders. If that's not the highest on the slate, it's easily in the top couple. I think it's the highest. 13.7% walk rate, also probably the highest out of the viable starters, the guys that we want to go to here. 6 innings in 3 straight starts, then went 7 despite walking 5 and striking out 9 in a 2-hit shutout versus the Cardinals last time out. He's given up a home run in 4 of his last 5, walk issues in basically every game, but he's done well, pitched well despite the home run upside. Those games were against the Dodgers, at the Diamondbacks, against the Orioles, against Miami, and at St. Louis. So pitching really well, totally earns the 11-3, the 10-6. I fully believe in the projection given the strikeout upside. This is close to, it's a very high projection that's getting a lot of strikeouts, and he's got the potential to pile bonuses on it. So I really like the opportunity for Snell here. I'm sure he'll be popular. He's very high priced. There are other options to get to. So if his popularity goes bananas because of all the value on the slate, I do think you can undercut and go in different directions. But he's probably my top priority pitcher overall, given the separation from the field, given the excellent strikeout potential. 2.60 ERA, 3.62 xFIP, pitches around all the walk problems. Typically doesn't get himself in all that much trouble otherwise. 1.26 whip with a 13.7% walk rate is pretty low. 15% swinging strikes, very high-end swinging strike rate. Excellent CSW, very good at limiting premium contact, 33.7% hard hits, only 87% miles an hour of exit velo, 2.42% home run rate. Like the spot quite a bit. Giants, as a hedge position, maybe you can take some of these guys. It would probably be Titor Estrada and Wilmer off the top with Mitch Haniger, maybe some JD Davis, maybe some Paul DeJong. Patrick Bailey, limited option. If you're on DK, you can grab some because he costs $3,200. 258, 313, 406 with a 99 WRC plus, only a 148 ISO, 7 home runs. There are other catchers that I like a lot better than Patrick Bailey on this slate against Blake Snell. Austin Slater specializes on the weak side of platoon splits against lefties, but the strong side of platoon splits against lefties here. But I do think it's an interesting spot. 2,900, 2,200, 265, 345, 401, a 110 WRC plus. It's an okay option off the top. He's a playable part for them. Casey Schmidt, Wade Meckler, kind of mix and match options. On the pod side against Kyle Harrison, you can easily get to some of these veteran guys. Obviously, we've got some power shining through against Kyle Harrison here. 2.50% home run rate so far. That's probably 2 home runs in the 2 outings, 1 home run in the 2 outings. On the pod side, Ha-Sung Kim turning himself basically into not a star, but a very, very good player this season. Career year, 17 home runs, 29 steals, 26% better than average creating runs, gets on at a 367 clip, ahead of Fernando Tatis, Juan Soto, Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts. These guys are just a run of very good players. 2 of them having, kind of not down seasons in terms of the triple slashes. Machado's power is still there. Bogart's counting stats are basically still there, but the triple slashes are way down. The run creation's down for both of these guys, but they're cheap for it. 34.28 for those 2 players on FanDuel, 53.48 for them on DK. In other years, those guys are much more expensive. Juan Soto down to 5,500 on DK doesn't make much sense. 3,400 on FanDuel doesn't make much sense. 26th home run last night, I want to say. 223 ISO, 146 WRC plus, best player on the team. Fernando Tatis, 58.39, maintaining his high prices, 21 homers, 23 steals, 119 WRC plus. Power's been down this season, 197 ISO. Still makes fantastic contact. And also steals bases. Garrett Cooper, interesting option at first base, 2,700, 2,400 for a guy with 14 home runs. Pretty good contact profile. Guy nobody really goes to all that much. Gary Sanchez with all his power. Very realistic power output from Gary. This is all Gary does at the plate. 18 home runs in 254, not all that surprising. 15% barrel rate, 45.5% hard hits. Strikes out at a 25.2% clip. Not the most consistent guy in terms of anything other than home run power. 271 ISO, 111 WRC plus. Matthew Batten, mix and match option, 2,600, dead minimum 2,000. He's been pretty productive with a 183 WRC plus in his 42 plate appearances. Jose Azocar, kind of a mixing guy. Blake Snell, Kyle Harrison, Padres bats. Only limited hedge position for Giants bats. Last game on deck, we got these lineups too. Braves have the everyday lineup going. That makes them a high priority spot for me. I think it should for everybody else as well. Going up against Emmett Sheehan. Not going to go to Emmett Sheehan shares on this one. Probably also not going to Bryce Elder against the Dodgers. Elder at 8,300 from site to site. Doesn't really project all that well. 3.50 ERA, 4.42 xFIP. He's okay for innings. 149 and a third, 26 starts. Doesn't really give up a ton of power. 2.44% home run rate, 6.2% barrels. Just maybe more of a limiting impact on the Dodgers, who are one of the most elite lineups in all of baseball, so probably not even a limiting impact. But just a very low ceiling for the starter, I think. Bad projection, low ceiling, and not all that discounted for facing the Dodgers with a 17.4% strikeout rate against a very low strikeout Dodgers lineup. I don't like the spot for Elder. Emmett Sheehan, 7,100, 7,000 against the best lineup in baseball when he's given up a 3.73% home run rate on 9.7% barrels, 43.4% hard hits in 38 and a third, 7 starts, only striking out 18.6 and walking 11.2 when he's got a 5.63 ERA with a 5.82 xFIP in the small sample. I think we could find better opportunities than that. This is also his first opportunity back since the 3rd. He went 4 innings in relief that start. He's been at AAA. 3 strikeouts in 4 innings, 2 home runs allowed versus Oakland in that last appearance. 2 hit shutout. Sorry. I don't know what this is supposed to mean. Oh, all right. 2 hits in 5 shutout innings with 5 strikeouts against the Reds in the outing before that at the end of July. 8 earned runs, 5 walks, 4 strikeout game, and 3 2/3 versus Texas before that. I think that's probably the more realistic game that we're going to get from Emmett Sheehan here. So fire away with Braves bats. Everybody in the world in this lineup is above the magic number. Eddie Rosario in the lineup today slips below it, but he's got 20 home runs, tons of lefty power. I disagree with where the home run model has Eddie Rosario today. I think he's got a little bit more upside for home runs. He should probably be above the magic number too. So should Sean Murphy. Disagree, not really, but still a decent enough home run mark. 110 WRC plus for Rosario this season. He joins Ozuna in the middle of the lineup. They've been basically back-to-back in the middle of the lineup all season. Ozuna outpacing him at 32 home runs, a 272 ISO, creating runs 35% better than average. A very good triple slash at this point for Marcell Ozuna as well, if you hadn't noticed. 272, getting on base at a 344 clip. He's been fantastic this season. As I've said a bunch of times, he'd be the best player on the Tigers, the best player on a lot of teams. Sean Murphy, top catcher option, even though he hits 7th now. 16.7% barrels, 45.8% hard hits, 20 home runs for him, 249 ISO, 143 WRC plus. Both guys at the bottom of the lineup creating runs 12% better than average. Okay mid-range ISOs, 16 home runs and 13 home runs. 20 steals for Harris. No steals for Arcia, but a better triple. Well, no. Harris slipped past him. 282, 337, 448 for Arcia. 290, 335, 460 for Harris. He doesn't watch it. He's going to end up over 300 for this season. Very good contact profiles from the 8 and the 9 hitter. And then, by the way, there's just superstars at the top of the lineup. Ronnie Acuna, 6,900, 4,900. Priced almost where he was at Coors Field. This is getting stupid. 4,900 on FanDuel, more affordable over there. 31 homers, 63 steals, a 169 WRC plus. Obviously his high price, but he's insanely good. Ozzie Albies back in the lineup, second base, key second baseman. Only 4,000 on the only 4,000 on the FanDuel slate. I got mixed up there for a second. 59 on DK, correctly priced, correctly high priced. 28 home runs, 11 steals, 119 WRC plus, a 236 ISO. Austin Riley, one of the best third basemen in baseball, one of the best power hitting third basemen in baseball. 32 home runs on the season at 230 ISO, 124 WRC plus. Matt Olson, best power hitting first baseman in baseball, 43 homers, 313 ISO, 150 WRC plus. On the other side of this one, Freddie Freeman, not the power hitter right now that Olson is, but 25 home runs, not bad. 244 ISO, not bad. 338, 413, 583, does everything else better than Olsen does. 168 WRC plus, monster season from Freddie. Mookie Betts chasing Acuna for the MVP as well. 6,800, 4,500, fills 3 positions on FanDuel, 2 on DK, 38 home runs on the season. I almost said 98 home runs. 38 home runs on the season, 10 steals, 176 WRC plus, 76% better than average grading runs, with the guy after him being 68% better than average grading runs. That's better than any 2 players back-to-back in this lineup, but these guys, WRC plus over the entire lineup, 130, where these guys are at 112. That's how good the Braves are. Will Smith, excellent catcher option. Not a pitcher for 5,500 on the FanDuel slate. Keep forgetting to change that. Max Muncy, 5,000, 3,900. Plenty of power there. Only a 6.56 against Elder, who, as we saw, does check power a little bit. But 32 home runs at 283 ISO. Max Muncy can hit a home run against anybody. David Peralta, Jason Hayward, James Outman, 3 lefties that I like for value in the outfield. All 3 of these guys, with any 4 of these guys, good mix and match options. Take any one of these guys with any 4 of those guys, any 2 of these guys with any 3 of these guys, and you're getting a pretty good stack. There's a decent amount of power. All these guys hit for okay averages, get involved for run creation. David Peralta, kind of disappointing that he's 12% below average for run creation, not getting on enough, but does have the best average in that group, if nothing else. Still makes very good contact at 46.2% hard hits, only strikes out 16.3% of the time. So we're just looking for good bat on ball skills at that point. James Hayward leads the group with, Outman leads the group with 17 homers, 14 steals. Hayward has 13 in only 301 plate appearances. Miguel Rojas, Austin Barnes, mix and match parts bottom of the lineup. With that, it's 6-10. We did not succeed at all in our goal of getting out with, it would be exactly an hour right now. One last look at the home run model. Let's see. Hugo Echeverria in the chat says, Hugo says, got him right on that. A reference would make sense. Can't recall, but I believe he has more hits than Sadahara. Oh. Wildcard says, I'm not familiar with rotoscouts. Did you break out on your own, Terry, or did you join a new team here? No, this is just me right now, Wildcard. Been doing it all baseball season. Glad you found us. Come September, just in time for football season, though. We'll be going through everything. But yeah, thanks, buddy. This is my endeavor. Broke out on my own. Not with Awesemo anymore. Hugo Echeverria says, I'm here for beers, burgers, sensimia, and bar trivia. I love it. Who invented the word mullet? Oh, that was Jeremy Savage. That's a better question. Harrison or Kikuchi on FanDuel? Harrison is probably safer, given all the premium contact that Kikuchi, even in an improved year, still allows. But I would probably, if I'm just looking for a good tournament play, I don't mind Kikuchi there. I think Harrison probably picks up a little bit more ownership for a little bit higher of a price. And Kikuchi's got such a tough pushover of an opponent, where Harrison's got a pretty tough one for a higher price. It's not at all safe, but yeah, I'll lean Kikuchi, even though Harrison projects a little bit better. That's just Coors Field that you're dealing with there. Alan S., I like the Clevenger spot, even when I had Riley Green in the projected lineup, so I like it even better with no Riley Green. As you can see, projects what's that, 6 on the board, and competitively with Aaron Nola in third, only basically a strikeout off the projection for Aaron Nola. I like the spot for Clevy. Going up against a weak version of that Tigers lineup, and that Tigers lineup overall has been underperforming the entire season. Get yourself through Torkelson, through Kerry Carpenter. You're doing all right there. Blake Snell, easily the top of the board, my highest priority pitcher. I really like that spot for strikeouts against San Francisco. I like the spot for Luis Castillo and for Aaron Nola against quality competition. Not elite competition, but quality competition for both of those guys. But they're both way beyond proven starters, both appropriately priced for their talents. I believe in the projections for both of those guys. They're ceiling beyond those for both of those guys. Hunter Brown's on the board against my Yankees, 96-88. An improved version of the Yankees lineup, though. Hunter Brown, maybe a little bit of a, getting toward the back end of a long rookie season. He's been pitching very, very well overall, still projects very well, and we've seen way worse pitchers dominate this Yankees team this season. Not a safe spot, but a good one for Hunter Brown. Montgomery, like that spot a lot, given the strikeout, the bonus strikeouts that the Twins will probably feed him.
definitely an interesting option there. They got him last time. I like him to get them this time. David Peterson, probably going to have the weight of the world on him popularity-wise in that spot against Seattle. As long as he's getting 6 or 7 innings or a shot at 6 or 7 innings, though, I do like the strikeout upside. Proven strikeout acumen at the major league level for David Peterson. Harrison, like it a lot. Despite the stiff competition, I just really believe in the pitcher. I think he's really, really good. He might get got by a team that does have like 4-star caliber bats, but there's a lot of strikeouts for him in the later part of that lineup, so it could be interesting. Ciccone, somewhat interesting given how he projects for the value pricing. I think he's at least a competitive value pivot from David Peterson. Not a great matchup for him against Baltimore, but if you can give me 5 or 6 clean innings for the cheap pricing, I think we're looking at that kind of a slate in terms of the value, so might as well look for it with the guy who's probably going to be less owned. Same thing goes for Drew Rahm, as bad as he might be, as good as Pittsburgh is projecting, but I'm going to greatly favor the Pittsburgh side. But at 5,300, I think maybe a couple darts if you're going to the Ciccones and the Petersons of the world. Probably not the worst idea in the world, given that he's only 53. Kikuchi, playable at Colorado. As ugly as it might seem, playable at Colorado. Reese Olson, I think, is interesting, too, from that value tier. 79, 73. Doesn't project great, but clear strikeout upside against the White Sox. Severino, I don't believe in at all. 75, 58. If you want to throw a couple value darts, do it on DK at the extreme discount. He was definitely better in the last 2 outings, pitched deeper into games, but the Astros are another animal. The Astros are a really good lineup, even without Altuve at the top. Tanner Houck, not incapable of putting up a good game. It'll probably be a more limited ceiling game, closer to the projection than a lot of guys, up toward the top of the board who have ceiling beyond their already good projections. But Tanner Houck would probably be my cutoff. I don't really want any Bryce Elder against the Dodgers, Emmett Sheehan against the Braves. Colin Ray's a target for Phillies bats for me. Alec Marsh is a big target for Boston bats. But at 67 on the DK slate, Marsh maybe, just given his strikeout acumen, maybe you could throw a dart at that. But I like every single one of the cheap guys that we talked about way, way better. The guys that are up the board there a little bit. Dallas Keuchel, no. Ty Blatch, no. Black. Thomas Hatch or Bailey Falter. I don't really see it. Tizzle Main says, is the $2,000 Yankee rookie Jason Dominguez premium prospect, their top prospect, kid that they've been bringing up since they signed him at 16 years old in the international market. Major power upside. Is he going deep again? He's hitting third today, so he's going to get an extra shot at it probably overall. Great spot in the lineup, hitting behind LeMahieu and Judge and ahead of Giancarlo Stanton. He is definitely going to see his pitches. I'll give him that much. Monster power potential. Launch one into the left field seats as a lefty going oppo against Justin Verlander on the first pitch he saw in the major leagues. There's talent there. It'll be fun to find out. It'll be fun to watch. I'll have plenty of them in my Yankee stacks. Let me answer you that way. My home run pick for the day was Kyle Schwarber. I'll end the show here. Do have to get to building lineups. At least we've got all the stuff all geared up, though. Schwarber was the very top of the board. Got some Braves lurking up here. Rafi Devers, I like that spot quite a bit. Luis Robert, the one danger spot for the starter in that game. Whoever the hell it was. Blanking. Some of the cards coming through for some power here. Arenado, Goldschmidt. We saw that stretch of quality Cardinals. Gorman, Arenado, and Goldschmidt all showing a little bit of power. Gary Sanchez, some of the Padres showing some power here on the other side of that Kyle Harrison start. So Harrison not totally safe. Again, even down lineup, a little bit of power threat. Obviously, the Braves, Jordan Alvarez. Pretty familiar names up at the top of the board today, but Schwarber, given the fact that he's doubling up the magic number for home run upside, that was the home run pick from the top of the lineup. Jimmy James, what up there? What's up, Jimmy? Sorry I'm late. Traffic was hectic. You're just getting here just as we're punching out, buddy, but Rewind. Fortunately, Rewind is there. Most of the show probably will still be there for you on YouTube. I think they cut it at 2 hours. We've gone 2:18 on this one, but there was a lot to talk about, it turned out. With that, guys, I'm going to punch out. Appreciate everybody. Hit the like button. Wild card, if you didn't do it already, hit the subscribe button so you know when these shows go live. We're going to have some football content coming up next week. The website is Rotoscouts. Also follow the @Rotoscouts Twitter handle. Do me a favor, give that some follows. Hit the likes, hit the retweets when you see stuff come out on there. Helps grow the site a little bit. Slow but steady growth. With that, gang, I'll see you tomorrow. Good luck out there. Somebody go win something.